electrical technology, the arts, and the like. Mr. Speaker, we will be transforming the Scholarship and Education Loan Division into state-of-the-art, technology-driven, customer-driven agency of the Ministry of Education. We intend to institute online application process and develop a system whereby we are able to track recipients of scholarships after they have completed their studies. We intend also this year to begin bonding all students who receive government funding, which will ensure that if there are needs in the public service moving forward in the public sector, where their education and training can be used, they will be required to work in the public sector for a predetermined period of time. And we intend to commence that this year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Scholarship Division will become a resource center where students and adults interested in a college can come and get assistance in planning for college. They'll get help in selecting institutions that can provide their educational needs, assistance in completing and compiling all the information required for the application process, and assistance in getting funding from institutions. Mr. Speaker, this resource center will develop a college search program to determine which colleges will provide money for deserving students in sports, the arts, music, sciences, and other areas. Mr. Speaker, the future looks bright for young people, particularly those pursuing higher education objectives in this government. The Ministry of Education will continue to provide scholarship funding and seek funding opportunities and partnerships with the private sector, foreign governments, and other colleges and universities wherever they may be found in the world. We must ensure that everyone in this wonderful place that we call the Bahamas has an opportunity to either acquire a tertiary education or to acquire a skill that would enable them to accomplish their dreams, ambitions, and aspirations. We have completed our interview process, and we expect to appoint the selected person to oversee this transformation of the Scholarship Division shortly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to training and development, which is the final piece. Mr. Speaker, one element that is necessary for our educational system to be effective is that of the engagement of quality teachers. When we have attracted the best and the bright to join the profession of teaching, we must commit to equipping them with the skills and training that they need to excel. After that is done, then we must give experienced teachers high-quality professional development programs to maintain and enhance their skill base. It is necessary. The same is necessary for other education sector employees. Mr. Speaker, in order to expedite this mandate, my ministry will open the doors of a new in-house professional development institute on the site of Mabel Walker Primary School. The institute is intended to increase effectiveness and efficiency within the ministry, create in the Bahamas a cadre of educators, of education workers who are better prepared with the requisite skills to lead and to serve, promote the value of ongoing learning and growth for all, align policies with practices, build up leadership and capacity to deliver change at all levels, improve the delivery of services in the public sector, particularly students, nurture partnerships in education. Mr. Speaker, over the past year, the Department of Education has completed a number of projects with a view to ensuring this tangible and visible improvements are realized. 193 teachers have been appointed. The restructuring of the department has meant that 3 deputy directors of education have been appointed, and these outcomes are indicative of the fact that the Ministry of Education's transformation agenda is committed to bringing focus towards strengthening and maximizing the resources needed to effect change in our educational system. We are committed to enhance and improve the capacity of the service delivery for thousands of teachers, administrators, technical and support staff in our public educational system. In this regard, we recognize that significant investment would have to be made in the recruitment exercise in order to ensure that its focused attention is placed on the priority areas within the ministry. Mr. Speaker, we also intend, wherever possible, to address the staffing matters which remain outstanding, matters which include reassessment, confirmation, reclassification, and administratively posted teachers and appointments of teachers to the permanent and pensionable establishment. Mr. Speaker, the final area that I wish to address is school properties. Mr. Speaker, last year we spent $5.6 million on school repairs and painting. Our physical plant received much needed care and attention that it deserved. There were structural, electrical, and plumbing concerns which were left outstanding for years. This year we budgeted to spend just over $4 million. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to report that the scope of works for the 2013 summer repairs have been completed by the Ministry of Work. The contractors have been selected and are to be notified this week. The Ministry of Finance has sent the funds to mobilize the contractors, and they are expected to begin works immediately next week after school closes. Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate that the national insurance payments, funding for promotions and reassessment, rents, and buildings other than schools have been removed from my ministry's budget and placed in the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Labor and National Insurance. Mr. Speaker, before I close, I want to pay tribute to the hard-working cadre of administrative teachers and support staff who daily strive to improve the standards of education despite challenges. I also want to encourage the diligent students who continue to strive for excellence to remember that rewards come to those who persevere. I want to lend my support to the hard-working parents who, through their encouragement, ignite the genius in each generation. I believe that the spirit of excellence and cooperation will pervade all of our plans for education and that we will reap good results from our efforts. Mr. Speaker, I close again with a quote from the Right Honorable Prime Minister Perry Christie, given at a press conference in early December 2012 relative to the Inspire ICT subcomponent of the IDB loan, where in our first year in office we have invested over $4 million in technology and computer labs in our public schools. And I quote, "My government has made the largest commitment to education in the past 20 years. Bahamians will be able to see it, touch it, and feel it. My government is serious about education, and we are striving to instill education not only as a priority, but as a value." Close quote. Mr. Speaker, I will therefore conclude now where I started and state for the 10th and final time that this PLP budget hits all the right notes. That's number 10. Or 12. The more the merrier. This PLP budget hits all the right notes, and education is headed in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Bain and Grandstown.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to move the following resolution. Resolved that the business of this House will continue beyond 7 p.m. on Wednesday, 12th June, 2013.
It's been moved and seconded. It's been moved, and I'll ask all members to not move while the question is being put. It's been moved and seconded that the business of this House extends beyond 7 p.m. this evening. As many as in favor shall remain seated. Those that oppose shall stand. It has been agreed the business of this House will continue beyond 7 p.m. this evening. As many? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Tall Pines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand here today before and on behalf of the good people of Tall Pines, Mr. Speaker, to make my contribution on this 2013-2014 budget. But, Mr. Speaker, before going into my discourse, I would like, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, because I feel strongly about it, to clarify or to give my viewpoint on one or two matters that took place in this honored chamber last night, sir.
Carry on, sir.
And I hope that you wouldn't take any of my time by doing so, because I'm asking for your permission to deal with a matter that has little to do with my budget communication or my contribution to this budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been honored to be in this chamber. I was sent
Sorry, Honourable Member. Continue. Chair recognizes honourable member for Tallback.
Mr. Speaker, I've had the privilege of being sent into this chamber some quarter century ago, 25 years to be exact, in 1987, Mr. Speaker. At that time, I was the Member of Parliament for Blue Hills, and I was honored, Mr. Speaker, that the people of Blue Hills had the faith and confidence to have me in here speaking for and on their behalf. Mr. Speaker, I think better than anyone in this chamber, there are two MPs in here, the Right Honourable Member for Centreville and the Honourable Member for Baines and Grandstand, along with the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that I've personally known for at least 55 years of my life. And of course, the Honourable Member for the Honourable Minister of Health. At least, in his case, all of my life, all of us. Speaker, I had difficulty sleeping last night because it bothered me as to what transpired. For the first time in my lifetime in this chamber, and this is my third time here, that a member stated what was stated last night to the Right Honourable Member for Centreville, indicating that in fact he hated women and she knew why. He thought he was a king and he is not, etc., etc., etc. Why it bothered me so much, Mr. Speaker, I'm a young man in the same age group as the Honourable Member for Bain and Grandstand there, just a few years older than I, he and the Right Honourable Member for Centreville. Just a few, about 5 years. I know I look a little young, but there's a reason behind that. I run every day so I could keep looking this way. If not, I get left, and I don't like to get left. Mr. Speaker, I think I want everyone in here to know, especially the young ones among us, that it was men like the Honourable Member for Centreville and the Honourable Member for Bainstown that had an impact on my life personally and the lives of many, many Bahamians, because they were our heroes. They were just above our age line. And we saw them as our heroes in many respects. It took me back to a young man, Norris Stubbs, we used to call Nuts, who was one of the greatest sprinters at that time this country had. And all of us used to try our best to emulate the Honourable Member for Bain and Grandstand, who was one of our premier sprinters. And what we used to like about him was any time he hit the bend in that 200, his shirt used to drop on the side, like it dropping off. And of course, all the women used to be screaming. And the little fellas like us, we couldn't wait to be like him. Because back then when you run, you try to, see if you can get yourself a couple of the girls. So you run hard. With the member for Centreville, we used to call him the smooth one. He was the triple jump and long jumper. And again, we imitated our lives around theirs, because even in the 60s, now remember, this is 62, 63, 64, 65. He ain't taking no time from me yet. I told you, give me...
Honourable Member, could you just kindly take
give me 3 minutes.
I think it would be prudent at this time to briefly suspend. I noticed that the transmission going out is frozen. So you've been in the same position for the last maybe 3 minutes on the television screen. So I think if we can stop the time and just briefly suspend to try and get the transmission going back out to the public.
Give them 5 minutes back.
Can we suspend, please?
All right.
Oh, so I need a motion. Well, I apologize. I just was really concerned with the transmission being stopped. Thank you.
Those words which the Speaker best describe the honourable member for Centerville. Mr. Speaker, this is a gentleman who has spent his entire life giving service to our country. This is someone who, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that is not only loved but revered by most Bahamians, especially the women, because they see him as someone that they can go to, someone that would lend an ear, someone that would lend a helping hand, and someone who is genuinely concerned about their welfare. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, from my family's own personal experience, and the greatest tragedy that I would wish on no other human being, especially parents, Mr. Speaker, with the death of our son Mario, in our darkest hour, Mr. Speaker, the darkest hour that we face as a parent, that Yazi, Helen, Leslie, and the other children, that what the honourable member and the compassion that he showed for my family, along with my good friend, the honourable member for Bain and grandson, Mr. Speaker, even today when they talk about it, they cry. That no one has shown them more love, more gratitude, more sincerity and concern about their welfare, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart how grateful we are to have friendship such as that. And I will take that to my grave. Speaker, I just want to encourage the young ones among us to appreciate that this place you can get overheated, you can argue, and words are tossed to and fro, some very painful, and you get carried away because one in opposition, one in the government, you have to have the last say. It's not necessary, Mr. Speaker. This is a dignified place. We are here to work on behalf of the people that allow us the opportunity to speak, and I'm privileged, very privileged, to have been able to be elected to these chambers again, Mr. Speaker, for the third time in my lifetime. I never dreamed being a member of Parliament, because those who I try to emulate and those who I've had the privilege of being around, Mr. Speaker, for the last 50 years of my life has given me the inspiration, the wherewithal and the tenacity and the caring for other persons to be in this chamber to do a job. Men like Sir Lyndon, the Honourable Arthur Dion Hanna, the Honourable Cecil Wallace Whitfield, other folks, Clementine Maynard. The list goes on, Mr. Speaker. They were men and women named Doris Johnson, who was my teacher, Honourable Carlton Francis, also one of my teachers. They are the people that we try to emulate, along with the two members, as I indicated before, that they were our heroes because they were in our set, just a few years above us, so we try our best to be like them. That's what it's all about, to try to be like them, and they took us to such a level that we never dreamed. One came back as a doctor from Aberdeen, Scotland, that we were so, all of us were proud of. Dr. Norris Stubbs went on to be a professor at the University of Texas, a PhD, one of the best universities in the United States for engineering, and others went on to different careers, and here we are in those days aspiring to be somebody, and some of us has attained much, but all of us respected and admired and loved the footpath that they led for us that we could have fallen in. And I'm proud to say, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud to be here today by God's will to truly call them friends. And I wish that respect. And hopefully from now on, Mr. Speaker, we'll be able to respect each other in the manner that is worthy of all of us. Mr. Speaker, I'd like now to move on to my contribution with regard to the budget at hand, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I believe this budget that is presented by Right Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, is a budget which puts us on the right track for a sound economic recovery. It is a definitive beginning for a better financial future for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It is indeed a start in the right direction for a better Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, Moody, in its assessment of the budget, gave a positive review to the government of the Bahamas, that in fact they were satisfied that rules contained in this budget would lead us, hopefully, to prosperity in the rather near future. Speaker, one has to appreciate where the Bahamas is in this junction in our history. The world is still going through a massive recession, the worst in our lifetime. When you consider the fact that in France, Mr. Speaker, 1 in every 4 Frenchmen is out of a job. If you look at television this morning, CNN, you look at what is happening in Greece, what is happening in Turkey, there's upheaval throughout the world. And the Bahamas still find itself in a fairly decent position to be in, even though we're not where we would wish to be, and certainly not where we should be after this budget takes place and takes effect over the next 12 months. So, Mr. Speaker, it is a start in the right direction. It should also be noted, Mr. Speaker, this is really the first budget by this Progressive Liberal Party government since retaining power on the 7th of May last year. And hopefully, Mr. Speaker, this budget is indeed the beginning for a brighter future for Bahamians everywhere. Mr. Speaker, as I went through this budget, I decided to pick those areas that I felt best impacted the lives of the average Bahamian on a daily basis. The first item that I looked at, Mr. Speaker, was health. Health is, of course, one of the biggest items in our budget. Last year, the Ministry of Health budget amounted to some $247,429,000. This year, the budget amounted to some $244,768, $68,221. Mr. Speaker, if you was to ask the average Bahamian today, and I took time out on Monday and I went and visited the Princess Margaret Hospital. I spent about 2 hours up there talking to some of the nurses, some of the administrative, and just walking through, visiting. And I did that, Mr. Speaker, because I wanted to get a pretty good overview as to how our budget, this $245 million, is going to be spent on health facilities in the Bahamas, hopefully for Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, if you was to go into the ward at the hospital, into the maternity ward, you would find that you may find 50% or 60% of patients in that ward. You may find 10 to 15% of Jamaicans and others. And the other 20% to 30% you may find Bahamians. If you go to A&E on any given night, I am told that generally you have 60% Bahamians, 40% others at our hospital. If you go through the length and breadth of the hospital, you find the same thing. What I'm trying to get at, Mr. Speaker, is that we have a budget of $244 million. Bahamians are paying their fair share of their taxes to enable the government to accumulate these funds to pay its bills and to enable them to provide these services for and on behalf of the people of the Bahamas. I think the problem many Bahamians have, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that out of this $245 million, approximately 20, as much as 40% of that is going to be spent on persons other than Bahamians. And that borders a lot of Bahamians, Mr. Speaker. And you ask yourself whether a country like the Bahamas with our size could continue to go on this pathway where we go and we pay our taxes, we promote a budget, it's passed in this parliament, the funds are spent, and others are enjoying it to the detriment of many Bahamians. I think that's worrisome to many Bahamians. And I wonder, Mr. Speaker, whether the time has not come for us to really sit seriously and evaluate what it is we're attempting to do for the people of our country versus those who are among us. Mr. Speaker, let me make it clear. I have nothing against no foreigner in this country, no Jamaican, no Haitians, or no one else. But I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that our country, I believe, cannot afford over the long term to continue to carry the burden of spending all of these funds on others, where these budgets could be cut down to a certain degree if we only taken care of our own people. And that's what many Bahamians, Mr. Speaker, are concerned about. Who are getting the benefits of our labor? I think that's a fair question to ask. And I wonder sometimes whether it may not be in our best interest if we was to work out a deal with the Haitian government and just cut them a check, maybe for $20 million, and say, now do me a favor, ask your people to go home to get their services, but we can have paid for it. And do the same thing to Jamaica and some of these other places, because everybody seems to want to dump their problems on us. Right now in this country, Mr. Speaker, I dare say this evening that there are more people from our area in the Bahamas than all the other countries in this region combined. We are the melting pot for the rest of the Caribbean, and I guess I could say now South and Central America. Because you got the Spanish people here also that are benefiting from our budget.
Canadians.
The Filipinos and everybody else. I'm just saying, Mr. Speaker, that these are things that I believe Bahamians are concerned about. They've told me, especially at the hospital, on any weekend when all the trouble starts, people get drunk and go nuts, you know. We are spending a lot of money on people other than our own people. In education, Mr. Speaker, I look at that budget. And this is a worrisome situation. I'm sure the Honorable Minister faces it every day of his life. Last year, we spent $282 million on education. This year, it's pegged at $268 million in its totality. Mr. Speaker, by the way, the nurses will tell you that if you go to any of the clinics in New Providence, you'll find as much as 80% of the persons being served there are non-Bahamians. Now, that is a fact I think no one can deny in the clinics. From morning till night, the clinics are full with people other than Bahamians. Which means that we are carrying that load for other people, many of whom are illegal immigrants. Many of whom are illegal immigrants that we are taking care of. That presents an onerous burden on the backs of the average Bahamian, on the back of our country. I don't believe, Mr. Speaker, we can take it anymore. In the field of education, Mr. Speaker, mothers will call you every single day complaining that they cannot get their kids into the government schools. That if they live in one area, the kid has to be schooled to another area, some miles away. I spoke to a principal yesterday, and a nurse whose sister is a principal. She said, Leslie, during the month now of June before school closed, some of the principals and assistant principals will call around to their friends and family members and say, listen, if you want Johnny to come to school in September, you better register now, but because come July, them other people can take every single seat. Now, some people may say I'm trying to be prejudiced. I'm not. I'm saying that, again, we're spending $268 million on education, and much of that goes to educate children that are not Bahamians. Now, see, I don't have another country to go to, you know. This is all God gave me. A place called the Bahamas, this little rock. Is all we got. Most Bahamians don't want to go to many other places. They certainly ain't going south if they're going to head north to Miami and elsewhere. So you're not worried about us heading down there now. Most of us, we ain't going south. Because the Bahamas is just an adjunct of Dade County, as far as most Bahamians are concerned. That's all we are. Just an adjunct of Dade County. So to speak, it's imperative that when we look at the amount of money that we're putting into our budget, the amount of money that the government has to spend every year in health care, in education, the question must be asked, who are the beneficiaries of our funding that we are spending every year? Is this truly a budget for Bahamians, or is this a budget for all comers, for all takers? And I think it's a valid point. Because the lady who lives in Tall Pines, that come September can't get a kid to school, I can't tell her as an MP that the kid cannot go to that school. She said, Mr. Miller, you have 2,000 other people there. You can tell me my little daughter going to school for the first time can't enter the school? So why these children there? And it's difficult for any of us, any MP, to explain that. First of all, they're saying, it's our money. It's our schools that the government put us for us. And yet we don't get the benefits of going to our schools. Again, I'm not saying, Mr. Speaker, I'm prejudiced against no one, but I believe they got some schools where they come from. Use their schools. We may have to send them a check. This your contribution. But please go home, give us a break. The country can't take it no more. Bahamians are frustrated. Very, very frustrated. I went to Lady O's 2 weeks ago. Speaker, the first thing she told me, she said, come inside. She showed me how tough things are. She said, you know what, Mr. Miller? She said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. She said it about 10 times and started crying. She said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Say, everything coming down on at the same time. The children can't get in school, 1 or 2 of them. Mind, a lot of them could get in school, but they register late. But as far as they're concerned, I'm a Bahamian. I have a right. My children have a privilege. They should be up front to go to school. And in fact, in Florida and in many states now, if you are a foreigner, the respective counties and government make you pay to go to their public schools. It's not free. They make you pay to go there. If I was to get sick tonight and I was to go to Miami, if I want to go to Jackson Memorial, I'll have to pay. Unless you could show a green card or show some form of document that you are an American. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we can carry this burden much longer. We can't carry it much longer. It is reaching to a point now where Bahamians are so frustrated with their everyday lives that when these things mingle in the mix with them, and they say, you know, I'm only working 3 days a week, I'm catching hell all over, I'm trying to take my kid to school, I can't get in, I'm trying to go to the hospital, I can't get served. The frustration sets in and they go crazy, and rightfully so, because you can only take so much as a human being. So my view is, Mr. Speaker, speaking on their behalf, I'm just begging those among us, please, let me give you one check. Please go home. That's all. Or if you want to make it a little more palatable, go down to our key dock. That's where all the sloops are angled. Get a fella a check. Say, my brother, I can let you take this to the man up there. You got $1 million check. He can give you one every month. But take your boat full, all of y'all. I ain't got nothing against him, you know. That would be cheaper than us spending about $50 million on people who have no right to be here. I'd rather pay them $1 million a month and send a check and say this is our contribution to your country. But we can't take the load anymore, Mr. Speaker. And I don't think that's asking too much. Some may think different. But that is my own personal viewpoint and the viewpoint of many, many Bahamians I've come in contact with. They are frustrated and they can't take it much more. Mr. Speaker, with the police force, the budget this year is $127 million. Again, you face some of the same problems. Speaker, the police does a wonderful job for us in this country. They put their lives at risk every day. The lady who lives in Mario's apartment, she called me this morning at 6 minutes after 5. Said a police car pulled up in the garage, and her sister was awakened because the horn was blowing and the sirens was on. I immediately called 919. I said, you know, someone was on my premises, the police. I want to know if something happened to one of my daughters or what have you. So she put me on to another gentleman who answered the phone. I said, just explain to him what happened. I'd like to know if something was wrong. So he said, I'll get back to you. He never called me back. At 5:28, I called back to the 919. A lady came on. I said, "Miss, I was just calling again because the gentleman promised to call me back. I want to know if there was a problem with someone or, one of the places maybe there was some situation happened." She said, "No, they said they just came in your garage, but they didn't blow no horn. They were just doing their routine checks." Well, I appreciate that, but at least out of courtesy, if you call, you expect for them to call because I didn't know what was wrong. This is 5 o'clock in the morning. But Mr. Speaker, they have done a wonderful job in protecting us. I think one of the problems the police have, Mr. Speaker, in doing their job is that you have so many lawyers, especially the ones that hangs around the courts, that encourages some of these fellas to do wrong, encourage them to steal and everything else because they make a living out of them bums. Okay? That's how they make their living. They encourage fellas to do wrong to pay them. And we have seen this in the 80s with the drug dealers, when the drug dealer and the lawyer used to be like buddies. They go to lunch together and everything else until all that money go. As soon as that fella hit rock bottom, his lawyer dump him. But as long as he got a couple of dollars, the lawyer can beat up with him all the way. I believe that the lawyers too have a responsibility in this country, Mr. Speaker, to stop aiding and abetting criminals. And many of them do so on a daily basis. They would encourage the fellow to go and break in, steal, and kill if necessary to enable him to get some money to give them their share that they need to represent him. I believe that with all my heart. They are wicked. Some of them should be in Fox Hill. Plenty of them. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad you remind me of that. Mr. Speaker, from talking to the nurses on Monday, government have a lot of doctors on contracts. I think the pay is some $60,000 to $65,000 a year. And I am told by many of those nurses, Mr. Speaker, that the average doctor who's on government contract put in less than 12 hours a week in that hospital. But what the nurses are deeply concerned about is the fact that the trainees, the doctor that's in training, the interns who hasn't really finished all of his training yet, that those same doctors who we pay $65,000 a year to don't come in to train those doctors. So you have the nurses training the doctors in very many cases. Because these are young people. For the first time they say in trauma, yes, sir. That they're not trained, but I'm saying that they assist the doctors because the older doctors that you all pay the $65,000 a year to hardly ever go to work. And some of them go as far, Mr. Speaker. Some of them go as far. Some of them go as far as letting you settle in that hallway or not really serving you on a timely basis and then asking you to go to their office for private practice to make more money off of you. You're done eating. Your hospital, you spend 2 or 3 hours. The doctor say, listen, if you want quick service, you better come see me at my office. And they charge you $65 or $85 or how many dollars. That cannot be right. Yes. That's what I'm told. Now, well, I believe the honourable member is much better than that. I would believe he would do that. Mr. Speaker, with the Defense Force, $54 million the government is going to be spending or allocated this year. No, $53 million, $54 million is going to be allocated to Defense Force. Again, what are they doing primarily? Guarding our borders to try to keep illegals and illegal fishermen out of our waters who are destroying the fish that we have in the Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. Again, we have, it boils back to one thing again. Persons coming into the Bahamas without permission, coming here illegally, living here illegally, poaching our waters illegally, and getting away with it. And most of our funds are spent trying to guard our heritage. You know, Salinden and those, and the Honorable Arthur D. Onana told us years ago, if we don't guard what is ours, they can take it from us. Right. And every day you see our country being taken from us. Mr. Speaker, in the hotel industry, our number one industry. Okay? Today, the young Bahamians are staying away from getting degrees in tourism and getting degrees in the hospitality industry. I met a young lady who just got a job to BC for the summer. 4.0 students, full scholarship at one of the major universities in the United States. Her brother is a 3.80 student. They compete with each other. She's a junior now. And she said, Mr. Miller, there's no way I would go into the hospitality industry because I know of no Bahamians, or the majority of Bahamians who work in that industry are second-class places in that industry. None of them, or most of them in the industry, never can get to the top echelon in that industry. Now, here's our number one industry. Number one. In one hotel, Mr. Speaker, they have about 40 to 50 categories of managers. And in one instance, they have 2 managers at that institution, one of the major ones. 2 managers that are Bahamians. 2. Even the ski operator is a foreigner.
My.
The fellow on the golf course is a foreigner. The kitchen fella is a foreigner. So why should our people go and educate themselves to the highest level, get a master's degree in this field, when they can't come back to their own country and get a job? Go on, well, Paradise Island has a few, but the ones out west, you can hardly find any managers. And I am told that in Exuma is worse. Okay? It's totally worse in Exuma. That the frustration level there with regard to Bahamians, it's an utter disgrace. And these are problems, Mr. Speaker, that we have to deal with in this parliament because they are people that we represent. Just how we can produce the finest lawyers, the finest architects, the finest doctors, we can produce people in that area also. But they are frustrated and they are moving away from that sector because they don't feel that the opportunities are there to enable them to rise above the fray. That they peg you at a certain level. In one instance, some of the managers told me that, in fact, if you look at the pay scale for Bahamians versus the foreigners with similar job, there's a disparity with what they pay Bahamians versus what they pay the foreigners for the same job. The banking sector and the insurance industry. The insurance industry, Mr. Speaker, is another area. If you notice, this the Tribune yesterday, insurers' flood claims equal 30% of their profits. That's what it says. Mr. Speaker, if you was to put a claim into any insurance company in this country, you see who that adjuster would be. See if you could find one Bahamian adjuster. One. Name me one. One. You know we were there. One Bahamian adjuster. They don't exist. One of the major planks in our economy. You have hardly no Bahamian adjusters in that situation. You find the Englishman. In every instance, there's an Englishman coming to determine your fate. And if you raise hell with them, you know what they do? They cancel your insurance. If you don't accept what they give you, they cancel you because there's a cartel. There's only about 2 of them that really reinsures in this country. So if you don't take what they give you, they cancel you out. But that is a serious situation where you have an industry in this country where you have it totally proliferated by foreigners, by the Englishmen, that will not allow Bahamians to get into that field, Mr. Speaker. They will not allow them to get in there. I don't care what insurance company you call today. When you see that adjuster, you can see a man from England who's going to find, well, or Canada, who's going to decide your fate. You ain't going to see no Bahamians.
Wow.
I guarantee you that. No Bahamians you can see in them, Mr. Speaker. That cannot be right. Mr. Speaker, another area that Bahamians are frustrated with when it comes to BTC. Speaker, you know, there's all this talk about this 2%. It's 2%. Speaker, I have never seen in my lifetime lousier service than what we have in this country today.
Lousy in the word.
Mr. Speaker,
Say that much.
if Bahamians cannot run BTC,
It was running it all the time.
and they was running it for the last 50 years of our lives.
These ones running their voice.
I was on my home phone this morning. I talked to myself for about 2 minutes. I say, hey, you ain't there.
On the landline,
On the landline.
Worst service ever.
Forget the landline. Drop, you can't even get it back, because I keep clicking, click, 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 click. That's the landline either. But yet they go on this highfalutin program about how much money they're spending, this upgrade for this 4G, and it's not 4G, I understand it's 3G. Fuck, it's probably even damn 2G. Whatever G it is, it ain't a G you get in the States.
yeah, they ain't got no budget.
It ain't good. It ain't no good G. Put it that way. Okay? Mr. Speaker,
We was promised greatness by the last administration.
I spoke with
Greatness.
one of the writers, the business writers, yesterday on BTC. You know what he said? In all of the Caribbean that cable and wireless is operating, every single country in the Caribbean, they losing money.
Only here they
Every single place.
Except the Bahamas.
And what really annoys Bahamians is this garbage boat powered by Lime.
Oh, yeah.
They are powered by BTC. What is this crap but powered by Lime? What the hell is Lime anyhow? This Lime, it must be a lemon. Because that's really what we get, lemon service. This powered by Lime.
Sour lime.
It does not work. The system don't work. And when you consider the fact, Mr. Speaker, that 2.5%,
We agree.
Everything we said was half and half.
BTC or cable and wireless paid $4.2 million
For 2%.
for that 2%. That's what they paid, you know.
4.2.
And I don't see why we couldn't, out of the goodness of our heart, get the public treasurer to write them a check for $10 million. My brothers, you paid 4.2. I can give you 10.
Pick it up and leave.
That's 5.8 more than what you paid for it, right?
Take it or leave it.
We need to get it back. You get a couple of days to do it, or your persona non gratis, get lost. That's what we got to come, just get lost. Because anybody could give you better service than what BTC is giving you. I don't care who it is. The fella through Old Corner could do better than them. I'm telling you, anybody could do better than them.
Funny, that's serious.
Anyone can do better than them, Mr. Speaker. Anyone. And all they do is promote. You hear them, but these stores now they got. All you see is promote, promote, promote.
And try to get in community.
And what is interesting, Mr. Speaker, the writer said that for the last, from 2009, there's been no financial report issued, you know.
They ain't show you none.
None published.
No.
And worse than that, since they bought BTC, you can't disseminate BTC's actuals by themselves. They put it in the mix. They hide our figures. And some of them, I'm told, is making as much as $1 million a year in salaries.
Yeah.
$1 million a year in salaries.
Funneling it out of the country. Yeah. Exactly.
Mr. Speaker, listen.
They move trailers. They
You-
move
you-
the trailers. They move folks in the trailers. Don't forget
You,
that.
you cannot expect us as a people to continue to put up with this foolishness that we putting up with.
And you can't get service.
You cannot expect it. The service is the worst in the history of this country. In the 50s, we were better than this. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we were superior to this. And you got the Englishman who we run out of here in 1973 back again. For Christ's sake, we just run him out of here. And you got him back?
360.
For what reason? What reason? You know, it was Mr. Hanna, God bless him, Honorable Arthur Dion Hanna, and Mr. Carlton Francis, man like A. Loftus Roker. They say every 10 years, their policy was you should cleanse your country. Every 10 years. You go with a cleansing process. My brother, you was here for 10 years. Bye. Leave. We don't need BTC. BTC belongs to us. Oh, it did. We got lousy service.
We don't need
You're paying more,
BTC stays. We don't
and
need
they're
land.
getting away with it. totally getting with it. Now, Speaker, you know what I find interesting yesterday? The Honorable Minister for Works and Utilities, for Works, indicated that there was this discrepancy between the government on Bahamas on this road project. True to form. And I really take a delight in checking these brothers out. As soon...
Go easy on him, Les. Go easy
No,
on
no.
him, man.
As soon as the government indicated they wasn't paying them no 42 million, you see full page ad in the papers again
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. I think
that the contribution of Bahamas to this country is so immeasurable. And you know what's interesting? There's always a brother that they... I didn't even know the Agla was no board member. The fella ain't coming out by himself now. He wants you to kill the brother. He stay in the background. You want to eat my food? You want to take my money? You go take the shots. Odds right there. I was looking for the one I saw. I didn't even know that he was on the board. But he's then praising them and saying how great they are. And the impact of that company on our country, Mr. Speaker, is almost zero. Unlike Sun International and Kirsten, those where Bahamians felt the goodness of that project, where Bahamians were working and making money, you have felt nothing with Bahamas. Nothing. I dare say all the figures that they present, in my opinion, half of them are bogus. See here? Bahamas already drive an economy. No, that's a Chinese economy. That's a Chinese economy. Full page. See here? Full page. See here? Driving our economy. What economy?
the Chinese...
Hardly no Bahamians working out there. And who working out there except for Sandy Sands? They couldn't take none of us in here for lunch. It'll come right out their salary. I guarantee you, no one out there could take you to lunch today. They'll come at their salary and sign a check. It'll be deducted come Friday. That's a fact. And all that holds up, Mr. Speaker. Bahamians got no say. But yet they put these ads, full-page ads, their contribution to the economy. But let's see what happens when it's finished. Mr. Speaker, in 2007 and 2008, the Bahamas government, the People's Treasury, got from BTC $70 million. That's what we got from BTC in 2007, $70 million. Dividend payment went into our Treasury to assist us in defraying the cost of running this country.
Yeah.
$70 million. In 2008, 2009, we got $30 million. And in 2009, 2010, we got $10 million.
What?
Wow.
You know what we got from CWC last year? 9.6 million.
My.
9.6 million. That's what we got.
million?
From 70 million in 2008 to 9.6 million. Now, mind you, they're doing 51%. But you see, by the time they finish inflating their costs and their administrative fees and everything else in there, they bleed you dry. They bloodsuckers.
Like the banks, man.
They take all you got. And they smile all the way to London. They're the biggest jackasses God ever put legs on are Bahamians. Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Number four,
but that's it.
offense.
In the dictionary, Speaker, I
Order
look at
to
that
be
word.
expunged from the
It's not a
record.
curse word. It is in the dictionary, jackass.
Get in the Bible.
Well, they say donkey, but they don't call us that, please. You think the fellas sit around and call us donkeys? When they having a drink? Please, they call us worse than that. Mr. Speaker, so you went from 70 million to 9 million. 70 million to 9 million. That's what we're getting. And I hope one day, as the union fellas from BTC, I know union fella now, so I don't know, I ain't feel no pity for them. I wish they go to BC for 1 week. Because the fellas, they're screaming and crying, but they're looking for help. You know, well, if they're anything like the brothers at BEC, Don't look for me to have him. And I ain't gonna say nothing about him in here either. So, they love it, but of course we got a good minister there. He can take care of him. So I might have to worry about him. Mr. Speaker, Rupert Roberts said a few weeks ago that one of the biggest problems he had with running his stores and the reason why food was becoming so high was the high cost of transportation with the shipping company.
They gave away the port too.
The port, Mr. Speaker.
My Lord.
If you read the newspapers this morning, you would see where they're going out now to raise $43 million.
They said it'd be oversubscribed quickly.
And they say within a week, it would be oversubscribed. $43 million.
Right there.
The port. See ya. Port expect $43 million to be gone in a week. Mr. Speaker, you know, you see this book here? This is the mail boat. These are some Bahamas, Mr. Speaker, who had approval from the government of the Bahamas, who went and borrowed $3 million from the bank.
To get in the business?
Put up $1 billion on Horseshoe Drive, was approved by the Bahamas Customs, was approved by the government of the Bahamas, and when the cartel with the big boys got together, they were disapproved. The same fellas here.
Shut them out.
The same thing what they doing on the dock out there, they had authority to do. The fellas about $3 to $4 million in debt. No, we can't thank you, Ingham. I want us to fix it here. What they did, we could undo.
Yeah.
The mail boat should have the same privileges as the brothers on the dock. That's what got to happen. What you do for them, we got to do for this crew right here. Because he had approval, so you cannot say that he had approval. They took it from him, Mr. Speaker. And he's catching eternal hell today, cannot live up to his obligations because his whole outfit was to do everything there on Horseshoe Drive, and they tell him, no, you can't do it no more. You ain't a part of the cartel. I am told that the average salary there for the big boys is $250,000 a year in salary. And you know, the people of the Bahamas own 40% of that port. They own 40.
But they ain't have no...
The port group owns 40%, and the other 10%, other 20% is owned by the Bahamian people. Now, what I believe is peculiar about that is that the other 20% that was financed by the port group itself. They said, we will give you the money, and we'll take it with your salary, or we will give you the money. In fact, they gave loans out.
Yes, as a matter of fact, out the public...
So who you think got control? You ain't paid for your shares yet. Who you think owned the extra 20%?
That's what I
Figure it out.
them. Don't get involved with it. They still get involved.
You ain't paid for it.
You bring them scams.
I got the shares until you pay for it. Therefore, I control the port in its entirety. You got the same group that was out here, now down there. The Speaker, you know what is scary about this? Those who control your port control your economy.
They know that.
Those who control your port control your economy.
That's why they went after it.
They decide how much to charge for each container. Before that port was finished,
Double now.
one company was charging $1,640 for a 40-foot high cube container. Today is $3,000.
My God.
Same container, $3,000. To get on that port, you need a passport or your driver's license. I went out there last week, and I didn't have none. I said, miss, look at my face. I want to see a picture and say, you're looking at me. She said, Mr. Miller, I need a passport or a driver's license.
Or they got to call upstairs.
Or they got to call the big brother upstairs for you to get in. Mind you, most ports in the world are like that also. It's nothing peculiar. But I'm saying that they are controlling. And they have exclusivity on this port. Remember now, no other Bahamian could go into this business. You can't put up a port or Clifton anymore, you know.
For 25 years.
This is theirs. Exclusivity, theirs alone. That is very, very dangerous when you got one group of people
Running things in this country.
that could stranglehold an entire economy.
F&M.
If they want to put the rates up, they put it up. Only got to have one meeting.
They need to take those 3 boys out.
This is a dangerous precedent. that has been set in this country. That the same cartel that was out running Bay Street is now running the port. Now you ask yourself, Mr. Speaker, what opportunities are other small Bahamians ever going to get?
None.
You got the port tied up.
BTC going.
Where are we to go? Why would you educate your kids? Spend all your money educating them when they come to this country. They can't go into the insurance industry to be no adjuster because that's reserved for the English fellas and the Canadians. Forget that one.
What about the bank?
The hotel industry, you're both locked out in. The banking sector, you could go so far, then they cut you down.
That's right.
What are our people to do? Why should we educate them?
But that's the general idea.
Why?
Don't educate.
That's why many Bahamians now refuse to come back home. Brilliant people. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't see the opportunities here in our own country that we call home. But I blame us, you know. I blame us. Again, I refer to what the Honorable Arthur de Onana said. He said the time must come when we as the people must decide on what type of country we want for ourselves and Bahamians yet unborn, we, meaning us, instead of letting the foreigner come in here and produce for us what he wants. Not what we want, you know. The fella come with his plan. I met a guy 2 weeks ago. Say he wants to start a bank in the Bahamas, and he came to me to try to get a license. So I said, well, I just like Bahamians. I said, what the hell do you like us for so much? What's so special about us? He said, I said, where you from? I'm from Cincinnati. I said, yeah, well, you know, you got a lot of black poor niggas down there. They can help some of them voice. you like black people? Go help some of them voice. Because I know the guy was a corn artist. Right? But he just loved the Bahamas. You know? I just love these people over here. What the hell you loving me for? I don't love you. I don't even know you. But there's this genuine love. You know, I love you. Like Cincinnati. The brother say he just love us. For no reason. I say, well, why you love us? I just love you. I said, but I don't know you. How you love? I just have a love for Bahamians. Right? Okay? But if you love, go love them little brothers who I know in the ghetto. Go grab some of them. Right? Let me love myself first. But Mr. Speaker, you know, we got to decide what it is we want to do. Now, you know, I didn't want to talk on BEC, but the minister said you got to say something. Mr. Speaker, we have now been to BEC under this new administration now for not 1 year, because we weren't appointed until July. And there's this former minister, Mr. Demore. Everything we try to do at BEC, in the press every day criticizing us. He went to the point he says that Bahamians shouldn't pay their light bill until the government pay its light bill. Now they tell me he works out at the airport. One of them jet fuel, I believe he gets too much fumes in his head to talk all the foolishness that he talks. First of all, here's a minister who has never once in 5 years had a meeting with any of the executive or management at BEC in 5 years. Never had one meeting.
Never?
Not one single meeting in 5 years.
Wow. Are you learning that from his leader?
Not one. But yet he says that everything we try to do makes no sense. In 5 years. Now you are minister responsible for BEC, but never call a meeting to get to know what is going on and try to see how much you could assist the Bahamian people.
No, because they know every day.
Mr. Speaker,
They say we broke me.
upon being named executive chairman of BEC, the board and the chairman settled to reduce the expenses of the corporation and move BEC towards profitability. To accomplish this, we revamp and improve certain programs implemented by the previous administration. An example of this, Mr. Speaker, is the contract for disconnectors. I spoke on that before. Mr. Speaker, when we took office, BEC had 11 contract disconnectors in New Providence, and these disconnectors were paid $704,595 over the course of 1 year. I want to repeat that. 11 persons were paid $704,595.50 in a 12-month period. So let me tell you how this works. Need a high school, you didn't got to be, you could quit high school. All you need is a car. BEC train you for 2 weeks. They pay you $300 while they're training you. You got to have a car with running. They show you how to turn the switch off, put the lock on, turn it back on when they pay. They average $58,716 a year. Some with no high school certificates, right off the street. $58,716 a year. Speaker, the first thing we did, I called all the brothers in. I said, listen, we got a new scheme here. Because one fellow made $95,000. One, without a high school certificate, sir. Took home $95,000 in 12 months. This under Nimoy, you know. The same guy who criticized us. $97,000 in 1 year. That's what he took home. Mr. Speaker, so we revamped the pay schedule and the quotas structure. We now have 25 disconnectors in New Providence, from 11 to 25, right? And from October 2012 to April 2013, they've been paid a total of $283,412 for the year, for those months. This represents a monthly amount of $40,000 for 25 people compared to, in other words, we save from that alone by hiring an additional 15 people. We save $18,000 every month from what they were paying. And hire additional people. That's what we did. Okay? The Speaker, overtime is still a problem for BEC, but we're fighting our way through it. In October 2011, the overtime for that month was $1.5 million. In October 2012, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that that was reduced from $1.5 million to $683,000, a decrease of $828,000. Mr. Speaker, in December 2011, the overtime for the month was $1,053,000. When compared to the overtime month of December 2012, which was $912,000, a difference of $140,000. That's only because we had the hurricane and we had to clean up. Mr. Speaker, as we progressed, we saw even further reductions. In February 2012, overtime costs were pegged at $770,857 the year before we got there. Compared to February 2013, the cost was cut in half. The cost was cut down to $474,000, a savings of $295,000 in 1 month. May overtime last year, Mr. Speaker, before we arrived, was $1,072,000. By May 13, Mr. Speaker, we cut the overtime down to $508,000 from $1 million, a difference of $563,000 in 1 month. That's what progress is about in trying to save people money. And you get this clueless minister who never had a meeting criticizing the board and the management with trying to save people money and by extension lower the cost of electricity for all of us.
That's why he's ex-minister.
Mr. Speaker, the total reduction on overtime thus far is $2.3 million. So you see we are trying to get some things done. However, Mr. Speaker, our minister, the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, has indicated that he would wish to see the overtime at a level of $200,000 per month. Now, you know what that means. Some of those excessive overtime brothers can be history for us to do that. Because, Mr. Speaker, it will astound you as to what goes on in BEC still today with this overtime. just want to give you some of the figures with regard to overtime and how it's being dealt with. Mr. Speaker, give you some ideas to the excessiveness that Mr. Nemo and his crew left us with. They were there for 5 years. I want to point out some figures with this genius that never had a meeting with the staff or management at BEC. One person, Mr. Speaker, in 8.5 years, accumulated overtime of $392,483. Another one over the same period accumulated overtime, $391,920. Another one over the same period accumulated overtime, $376,000 over that period. Another one, $337,000. Individuals. Another one, $246,000. Another one, $230,000. Another one, $228,000. Another one, $216,000. Another one, $208,000. And it goes down to one of the fellas who ain't doing too good. He only took home $153,000. 14 persons.
Let's leave them all.
14 persons took home $3.4 million. 14 persons. Time gone already? Jesus. You want to give me another half hour? So, Mr. Speaker, these are some of the things that we are grappling with. We are trying our best to get BEC on the right path. We just came out with a program, Mr. Speaker, to assist Bahamians in all walks of life. I want to be thankful to the Prime Minister and the Right Honorable Minister of State for Finance, who has given the Bahamian people some refuge, Mr. Speaker, by eliminating the tax that we pay on fuel, Mr. Speaker. That is going to be very helpful to all of our customers, and especially the major customers in the Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. And if you would permit me, I'll give you some figures, Mr. Speaker, quickly. I don't know if you want to give me one couple of minutes anyhow. Speaker, for example, Atlantis. Atlantis paid BEC last year $60 million for electricity. This year, Mr. Speaker, with the 10% decrease that we anticipate that will go into effect between now and September, Atlantis would save $6 million on their electricity bill, sir. $6 million.
How many jobs?
Bahamas pays us $15 million per annum. They will save approximately $1.5 million. Sandals Royal Bahamian pays $3.3 million per annum. They would save about $336,000. Breezes pays us $2.4 million per annum. They would save $242,000. Comfort Suites pays about $760,000. They would save about $76,000 per annum. Super Value, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Rupert Roberts, God bless him. He's a good customer and he pays bills on time. Last year he spent $5.3 million with BEC for electricity. This year he would have a savings of about $537,000. Consolidated Water spent $5 million. They would save $500,000. McDonald's spent $757,000. They would save $75,000. Superwash spent about $587,000 with us. They would save $58,000.
Wrap up, honorable member.
Aquapure spent $600,000. They would save $60,000. And St. John's College, who spends $154,000, they would pay $15,000. They would save $15,000. Mr. Speaker, we are on our way. Still a lot of road to tread. We're hoping that the unions would find ahead and work with us in trying to get us to fully implement the rostering system that would save us a whole lot of money to enable us to decrease the cost of electricity to Bahamian people, Mr. Speaker. I want to say on behalf of all the board members, the Prime Minister, the management and staff, Mr. Speaker, that I am indeed delighted on behalf of the people of Tall Pines to say, Mr. Speaker, that we fully support this budget. Thank you so much for your indulgence.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
As many? I was trying to be certain. The chair recognizes the honourable member for North Andros and the Berry Islands. North Andros and the Berry Islands. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Today I rise on behalf of my government and the wonderful people of North Andros and the Berry Islands. I thank them again for the confidence they have placed in me as their representative in this honorable place. I will continue to represent their best interests to the best of my ability. Mr. Speaker, before I begin my presentation, I wish to pay tribute to the late Dr. Cora Davis. Dr. Davis is remembered as a distinguished physician, scholar, teacher, mentor, who was charming, ladylike, and quite determined to achieve the best for all, with a beautiful smile and a firm hand. Dr. Davis served as medical officer of health in the Bahamas for almost 2 decades, from 1968 to 1985. And for a time, she was the only physician in the public service with a postgraduate degree in public health. Her attention to detailed documentation of statistics in her neat handwriting is legendary and was greatly admired by the entire staff. An expert in infectious diseases, she was a founding member of the Infectious Disease Committee of the Princess Margaret Hospital and was responsible for establishing the infection control procedures for the hospital, always linking preventative care and curative hospital-based care. Dr. Davis developed the childhood immunization program in 1981, and the Bahamas received recognition from the World Health Organization during the tenure of the now Honorable Prime Minister and member for Centerville, who at the time was serving as Minister for Health. She was instrumental in the building and operation of the health clinics in New Providence and the Family Islands, and always emphasized the importance of growth and development of children and good health practices in the community. Dr. Davis will be remembered for laying a foundation for the advances made in health and its development in the Bahamas over the past 4 decades. May she rest in peace. As the Minister with responsibility for health in this PLP government, my mandate speaks to ensuring equity in health, providing quality health care, and promoting wellness and addressing the social determinants of health as communicated in our National Health Services Strategic Plan 2010 to 2020. In order for these goals to be achieved, we would need universal access to health services. Hence, the need for the introduction of national health insurance for our citizens. The Ministry of Health is mandated by legislation to make provisions for securing the public health. The new National Health Services Strategic Plan is now published in published form and also on the government website. It will take us to the year 2020. Mr. Speaker, this plan is the roadmap for my ministry and comes at a critical period as we implement the development agenda of the government of the Bahamas. Under the plan, 7 goals with clearly defined strategies, indicators, and timelines have been identified to ensure that quality health care services are delivered equitably to the peoples across the archipelago. These 7 goals are: 1, intersectoral action for protecting and improving health; 2, integrated people-centered services focused on maintaining health; 3, improved use of information for decision-making; 4, a strengthened health workforce; 5, optimal use of health technologies, facilities, infrastructure, and supplies; 6, accountable leadership and governance; and 7, a sustainable health system. We will strive to correct the disparities in healthcare, especially for the residents of the Family Islands. The plan, when implemented, will prepare this administration to introduce a social health insurance, which is a priority for the government and is most needed by our fellow Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, services in the national health system are currently provided at minimal cost to the Bahamian populace. This year, the sum of $245,803,221 will be appropriated to the Ministry of Health, with $199,744,905 going to the Public Hospitals Authority, and $32,949,124 going to the Department of Public Health, and some $13,109,192 being apportioned to the Ministry of Health. At this time, basically all costs are borne by the government. A national health insurance program would generate additional funds that would alleviate the burden on the national purse and provide the resources for improved and expanded health services to our people in the clinics and hospitals. Mr. Speaker, chronic diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and their sequelae, as well as injuries related to trauma and violence, are killing our citizens, decreasing productivity of our citizens, and will eventually decrease our life expectancy. These and other social determinants of health have forced us to redirect our health services to preventative care, while at the same time dealing with the demand for curative care. Mr. Speaker, as we address the social determinants, we cannot ignore the issue of mental health. By 2030, it is projected that mental and neurological disorders will account for the greatest disease burden. Good mental health is just as important as good physical health. In fact, the old maxim says there can be no health without mental health. The importance of good mental health in any society needs no explanation or justification and is a priority for the government. As a part of the new model of care for patients with mental health concerns, my ministry is exploring an initiative to integrate mental health care services into primary health care facilities. It is intended that such an initiative will over time reduce the number of persons who would need to be hospitalized. It is a collaborative effort between the Public Hospitals Authority and the Department of Public Health, with technical assistance being provided by the Pan American Health Organization. Physicians and nurses in the public clinics will require training to detect persons in need of such assistance and to be able to provide it. And Mr. Speaker, if I may digress here, this morning, or rather I'll start, 2 weeks ago, I attended the World Health Association meeting where mental health was the priority subject of the 66th session of the WHA. And their ministers were advised to go back home and look into reducing the budgets for inpatient facilities for mental health by as much as 50% and place that money into community services, community health, to shift the emphasis from inpatient mental health to outpatient mental health. This was a subject that we discussed at Sunderland's Christmas celebration, where I spoke at the time and talked about decentralizing mental health care in the Bahamas. And this morning, before coming to Parliament, I opened the first training session put on by the Public Hospital Authority in Sunderland's for the training of physicians and nurses in mental health, with a view to training them to take up their places in our community clinics. And this conference this morning was put on supported by PAHO, and an expert from PAHO Washington is conducting the seminars. They will take the seminar to Freeport tomorrow or the day after. But it was fortuitous, really, to see that we have already begun training when the rest of the world was just being advised about decentralizing mental health services. That's what I told them this morning. Mr. Speaker, given the ever-present problems of substance abuse, crime, and violence, and the increasing trend of suicide and attempted suicide, which continues to have significant impact on our society, it is anticipated that this integration plan will have a significant positive impact. It is considered the most feasible way of closing the treatment gap and guaranteeing that people get the mental health care they need. It is affordable, enhances early detection and treatment, and improves access to mental health care by offering services in an outpatient setting. Mr. Speaker, the proposed integration is in line with the World Health Organization's charge to embrace this challenge, to impact the burden of diseases by strengthening integrative approaches to primary health care. Statistics indicate that a redirection of focus on the global and national burden of diseases that are evolving as a result of poor mental health, chronic non-communicable and communicable diseases, including HIV/AIDS, is necessary. We recognize that the Ministry of Health must work collaboratively with other government agencies and departments, as well as the private sector, in order to meet our health goals. The Ministry of Health cannot do it alone. Mr. Speaker, the time is fast approaching when we must report on our achievements with the Millennium Development Goals. In 1990, the nations of the world made a commitment to take special and particular action to improve the development and living standards for the people in their countries. These were known as the 8 Millennium Development Goals, commonly referred to as MDGs, and are to be achieved by 2015. The MDGs are: 1, eradicating extreme poverty and hunger; 2, achieving universal primary education; 3, promoting gender equality and empowering women; 4, reducing child mortality rates; 5, improving maternal health; 6, combating HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other diseases; 7, ensuring environmental sustainability; and 8, developing a global partnership for development. It is important to note here that health cuts across all the objectives of the MDGs. This signifies the contribution of health to development, both socially and economically. The importance of health to development has been acknowledged by my government and therefore identified for priority action. Mr. Speaker, my ministry has several national programs which are in line with these MDGs. You will note that goals 4 and 5 speak to reducing child mortality rates and improving maternal health. This is an area of priority for the ministry, so much so that the Ministry of Health took the necessary steps to facilitate the conduct of a midwifery diploma program at the College of the Bahamas in May 2012. "20 registered nurses sat the Nursing Council's examination for registration as midwives in May 2013. Although we recognize that the goal of infant mortality is challenging, we have faith in ourselves and the commitment from all our institutions, both public and private, as well as our social partners and the public at large, that the Bahamas will achieve this goal. To that end, Mr. Speaker, last year, with the assistance of a grant from the Inter-American Development Bank, we initiated a program aimed at the reduction of infant and maternal mortality rates. Mr. Speaker, last month, I attended the 66th session of the World Health Assembly in Geneva, where the Bahamas endorsed the resolution related to universal health coverage. Universal health coverage aims to ensure that all people obtain health services they need without the risk of financial ruin, and is underpinned by the concept that good health can be achieved at a low cost if good policies are in place. Mr. Speaker, work on national health insurance is underway. With the assistance of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, a specialist, and I must say a Bahamian specialist in health economics, has been appointed and has set about the business of gathering the necessary data as it relates to finances in health in the Bahamas.
Very good.
I would also add here that I was informed this morning that, having worked for the past 2 months, that the report is ready at PAHO for submission to the Ministry of Health very soon. In addition, as you know, the government has named the members of the National Health Insurance Steering Committee who are charged with the responsibility of ensuring full implementation of the National Health Insurance Act of 2006 at the earliest possible date. Mr. Speaker, I turn now to the Public Hospitals Authority. One of the most vital ingredients to achieving prosperity and success as a nation is full and fair access to quality, affordable health care. The Public Hospitals Authority continues to carry out its mandate to manage the resources, staff, and services of our nation's public hospitals. This includes the Princess Margaret Hospital, the Rand Memorial Hospital, and the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center. Also included in this portfolio are a number of community health clinics in Grand Bahama and the Bahamas National Drug Agency. For fiscal year 2013-14, the Public Hospitals Authority will receive an allocation of $199,744,905, the largest sum since its establishment in July 1999. This amount is $651,599 more than the allocation of 2012-2013. Mr. Speaker, this is significant as my government continues to demonstrate its commitment to the health and welfare of our citizens despite these hard economic times in our country. The PHA board and management understand that in these financially trying times, it is incumbent upon all to do more with less. It is in this vein that they continue to seek to utilize the most efficient ways to deliver quality health care to the people of the Bahamas. I would wish to commend their diligence in maximizing scarce resources and ensuring fiscal prudence in the expenditure of the same. Mr. Speaker, the sluggish economy inherited by my government, in which unemployment is high, although improving, is having considerable impact on our healthcare system. More Bahamians are now without health insurance, which has translated directly into greater volumes at our various facilities. As a consequence, more patients treated in the public facilities are being classified as non-paying, unemployed, or indigent patients. During fiscal year 2011-2012, the PHA total billing stood at $27 million, with patients who were unable to pay accounting for approximately 34%, or $9.1 million. On exempt patients, that is pensioners, civil servants, children under 14, and welfare patients, accounted for 39%, or $10.3 million of total billing. The PHA was able to collect 27%, or $7.2 million of the total bill during this period. Mr. Speaker, it is evident that there is an ever-growing demand for public health care services, which not only results in increased costs, but also provides added challenges for service delivery and management. Key areas of concern include the increased waiting times for some of our essential services, overcrowding in the accident and emergency departments, and bed shortages at our public hospitals. Injury from accidents and violence continue to exert considerable pressure on the system, with police cases accounting to approximately 10% of the total visits to accident and emergency department. The impact of non-communicable diseases remains a major challenge for the health system. There's no doubt then that good governance, effective management of resources, including our employees, strong clinical quality and patient safety programs must be at the center of the services provided by the PHA and its institutions. Mr. Speaker, please allow me for a few moments now to highlight some of the areas that will be given specific focus and attention by the PHA during the fiscal year 2013-14. Mr. Speaker, shortly after coming to office, my ministry, as promised, had installed 2 state-of-the-art digital mammography machines, one at the Princess Margaret Hospital in Nassau and the other at the RAN in Freeport. These machines are facilitating the These machines are facilitating early diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer, the most common form of cancer in women in our country. My government remains committed to the provision of modern health facilities with environments of care, conducive to delivery of efficient, effective, high-quality health care in safe and pleasant settings. During the upcoming fiscal year, the PHA will place major focus and attention on enhancing ophthalmology services at the Princess Margaret Hospital to ensure that Bahamians in need of basic ophthalmology surgery, for example, cataract surgery, and other advanced surgeries, for example, retinal detachment and/or glaucoma surgeries, could have these vital services completed right here at home. This will help alleviate the financial burden on people who have to find the funds to travel to the United States or elsewhere to receive this essential care.
Yes.
The critical care block project, which is scheduled to be completed in the first quarter of fiscal year 2013-14, is on target. And when completed, it will be a model for the region. This major healthcare investment will reap multiple benefits, such as, 1, improve access to critical care beds for adults and babies, reduced waiting times for surgical interventions, 2, improve surgical outcomes, 3, improve quality of care through the use of modern medical and information technologies, including telemedicine modalities, and 4, enhance diagnostic capacity in a modern medical laboratory environment. Additionally, the new state-of-the-art core lab will bring together all services in one location that will translate into greater health system efficiency and productivity. Mr. Speaker, my government has long felt that there are too many Bahamians who cannot afford the high costs of care associated with coronary heart disease. Indeed, too many Bahamians are placed at significant risk because they cannot afford the cost associated with managing heart disease in the private sector, especially cardiac surgery. In this regard, and as a result of space that will become available in the Princess Margaret Hospital following the relocation of services to the critical care block, the PHA has outlined a phased approach to improve the access to high-quality coronary heart disease care. Plans are in advanced stage to roll out infrastructural changes to accommodate a non-invasive cardiac unit in phase 1. The second phase will result in the construction of a cath lab to introduce cutting-edge cardiac care at the Princess Margaret Hospital for the first time. Mr. Speaker, this is a clear indication that my government believes in Bahamians and understands that we are to give focused attention to the economy. The improvement of health care must stand at the foundation of this process. Another important initiative underway during the upcoming fiscal year is the development and initiation of a plan for the further redevelopment of the Accident and Emergency Department at the PMH. This plan aims to relieve the severe problem of overcrowding, improve patient waiting times, enhance the environment of care, and improve patient satisfaction in the A&E department. The plan includes upgrading and expanding the trauma room, thus improving its capacity to triage patients and the ability to monitor patients through telehealth technology from the new intensive care unit above. Mr. Speaker, I am particularly pleased to announce that the PHA, in collaboration with the Ministry for Grand Bahama, another stakeholder, will carry out a comprehensive assessment of the healthcare needs of the communities in Grand Bahama so as to ensure that the Grand Bahamians receive the same high level of attention and focus as afforded those of us who reside in New Providence. It is fair to say, Mr. Speaker, that there is a need to replace several healthcare facilities in Grand Bahama, including Hawksbill, West End, and High Rock community clinics. These facilities are no longer adequate to meet the growing needs of the people, and my government will move with haste to bring relief to the people who reside in and visit Grand Bahama. Between 2002 and 2007, the PLP government acquired a 50-acre greenfield site for the construction of a new hospital in Grand Bahama. As promised in the Charter of Governance, we are currently exploring avenues for the construction of a new hospital facility in Grand Bahama. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the Department of Public Health, I quote, I quote Dr. Margaret Chan, Director General of the World Health Organization. We are living in troubled times with food insecurity, we are living in troubled times with food insecurity, job insecurity, economic insecurity, and political insecurity. In these troubled times, public health looks more and more like a refuge. End of quote. The development of a national healthcare system based on strong primary healthcare principles and orientation ensures lower health costs. Full realization of the benefits of primary healthcare and services requires additional focus on a number of areas, such as human resources, inclusive of the deployment of personnel to urban and rural settings, the provision of appropriate technology, strengthening of our health and management systems to provide for greater efficiency of resources, the alignment of initiatives and programs toward the achievements of national goals and objectives. Mr. Speaker, you would recall that I indicated that there are a number of national health programs, with maternal and child health being one of them. To date, in addition to maternal and child health, there are some 12 other programs designed to maintain and improve the health of our nation. These are as follows: the chronic non-communicable disease services, 2, communicable disease surveillance programs, the food handlers program, the telemedicine program, nutrition services, immunization programs for infants, children, school-age child, pregnant women, and adults, the oral health program, family planning and other reproductive health programs for males and females, mental health services in collaboration with the Public Hospitals Authority, limited ophthalmology and audiology services, occupational health and safety program, prison health services, and of course the National AIDS program. These programs are under the auspices of the Department of Public Health, which has the responsibility for almost 100 government clinics across the Bahamas, and I salute them because they are performing under severe economic circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform you that we now protect our children and young adults from 10 vaccine-preventable diseases and have sustained a 100% coverage against diphtheria, whooping cough, tetanus, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis B, and Haemophilus diseases among our infants and children under 5 years and women who are pregnant. We intend to add another vaccine protection for girls and women with the introduction of human papillomavirus vaccine, or the HPV vaccine. I am convinced that this will improve the health of women and also decrease the incidence of cancer of the cervix. This, we hope, will eventually lead to the elimination of cancer of the cervix in our community. Mr. Speaker, the number of clinics now managed by the Department of Public Health will shortly increase with the opening of 2 community health centers, one each in Exuma and Abaco. Both are scheduled for completion in the first quarter of the new budget year. These community health centers are like mini hospitals in that they are equipped with additional facilities not usually found in our clinics, such as the operating theater, laboratory, and X-ray services. Mr. Speaker, we expect that the introduction of these new health care facilities in the communities of Exuma and Abaco will reduce the social, financial, and time burdens experienced by those having to travel to the capital to seek care. Plans are for telemedicine to play an important role in the provision of services to persons who use these facilities. These improved community-based health services also have implications for the Princess Margaret Hospital. What this means is that the Princess Margaret Hospital would be able to improve its services as there will be fewer referrals and a reduction in the need for diagnostic tests in Nassau. Mr. Speaker, the benefit for the residents of Exuma and Abaco will be great. The introduction of these services means that the patients do not have to disrupt their lives by leaving their families through travel to New Providence. It is intended that diagnostics will be done and read on the island, and only if necessary, patients will be referred to Nassau for diagnosis. Above all, the patient will not have the unnecessary financial burden and travel and accommodations while away from home. Plans are underway for the building of similar facilities in South Eleuthera and Cat Island, as well as a new clinic for Rock Sound. Mr. Speaker, this is not an easy task. The Department of Public Health is responsible for the planning, implementation, delivery, monitoring, and evaluation of primary and public health care services in the Bahamas. Of the 98 clinics that exist, 8 are managed by the Public Hospitals Authority, and the remaining 90 are under the management and oversight of the Department of Public Health. The records reveal that almost 1/2 million, yes, 500,000 visits are made to these clinics annually. Of these visits, 75%, or 450,000, occur at the Department of Public Health facilities, with 50% of them being made to facilities in New Providence. Mr. Speaker, I make reference to those visits to show the importance of primary health care. Of the patients seen at primary health care levels, only 5% are admitted to hospitals. The government's aim is to reduce the number of persons who go to accident and emergency section of the Princess Margaret Hospital through providing services for them at the primary care level, and eventually to move primary health care service to an appointments-based system so that patients would not have to leave home to arrive at the clinic at some ungodly hour to get a number in order to receive health care. Mr. Speaker, the human resources for health remains a daunting challenge. In addition to the number of healthcare workers, we must review matters related to the recruitment, retention, and deployment of a well-trained, competent health workforce. This will require training and cross-training of public sector workers while embracing innovative learning environments to achieve both clinical and public health competencies. In addition, we must evaluate the environmental conditions that have an impact on the retention of health workers in areas where they are most needed. It is also important that we address the dearth of locally available, qualified, allied health staff and physicians for posting to the Family Islands. Mr. Speaker, I turn now to the subject of nursing. Nurses are the single largest group of healthcare professionals in the Ministry of Health. The nursing profession, therefore, continues to be an integral component of the health sector, and as such, recruitment, training, and retention of nurses are among the top priorities of the Ministry of Health. The Nursing Cadet Program is the main recruitment strategy for the nursing profession in the Ministry of Health. 228 students participated in this program. They were exposed to basic nursing functions at the Princess Margaret Hospital and community clinics in the Department of Public Health twice monthly. Program participants who met all the requirements for a scholarship were awarded the nursing grant, inclusive of tuition and a stipend, to pursue nursing studies at the College of the Bahamas. This fiscal year, the Ministry of Health financially supported 178 students enrolled in the Bachelor of Science degree in nursing program at the College of the Bahamas. 62 more nursing students began their internship in May 2013 and will sit the Nursing Council's final examination for registration in November 2013. All of these intern nursing students will be supported by the Ministry of Health at a salary of $10,200 per annum while they gain experience in the institutions of the Departments of Public Health and Public Hospitals Authority, respectively. Mr. Speaker, I'll now speak to the critical shortage of pharmacists in the country. To offset this need, the ministry entered a partnership with the College of the Bahamas and the University of Technology in Jamaica to train pharmacists in the Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy program, which commenced in the fall of 2008. This current fiscal year, the internship period of the first cohort of 14 ended. They have all been registered by the Pharmacy Council, and their applications for employment are being processed by the Department of Public Service. The second cohort of 10 pharmacy students commenced training in 2010. They are presently completing the third year at the University of Technology in Jamaica. 3 students from that cohort have met the requirements for sponsorship and are presently receiving the pharmacy education grant. A third group of 15 pharmacy students entered the Bachelor of Pharmacy program at the College of the Bahamas in September 2012. This initiative started with the previous administration and has continued and resulted in the decrease in waiting times for filling prescriptions in the public clinics, and has decreased from 3 hours to 30 minutes. Mr. Speaker, there's a critical shortage of allied healthcare workers in the public health sector. The National Allied Health Cadet Program was developed in response to this shortage. This program targets senior high school students from grades 10 through 12 in the Ministry of Education's Magnet Pre-Allied program at the C.V. Bethel and C.R. Walker Senior High Schools. The aim is to encourage them to choose one of the allied health professions as a career. During this fiscal year, 24 students were assigned to areas in the field of allied health to expose them to various aspects of the responsibilities of persons working in the field of allied health. It is proposed that this program will be expanded to include more schools during the next fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, to provide for the current services in all of our clinics now and for the future, my government has agreed that the physicians in the family medicine program at the Princess Margaret Hospital be integrated into the Department of Public Health. One of the drawbacks to doctors from the Public Hospitals Authority transferring to the department has been the disparities in salaries. This has been rectified, my colleagues. Should I repeat? You're not listening. I said you're not listening. I'm repeating. One of the drawbacks to doctors from the Public Hospitals Authority transferring to the Department of Public Health has been the disparity in salaries between public health and the PHA.
Yeah, member.
I said, let's listen. This has been rectified. Doctors in the Public Hospitals Authority and the Department of Public Health now have parity in pay scales.
Mind you, member, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, this idea about integration of family medicine doctors and improving the quality of doctors in the public health system, and in particular to the family islands, had its genesis at the landmark cabinet meeting in Abaco. And Mr. Minister for Tourism, or the member for West End and Bimini, might remember when we were discussing the need to improve the staffing in the family islands, because a number of islands had been without a physician. The Berry Islands has never had a permanent resident doctor. They still don't. So the question was raised at the cabinet meeting in Abaco, why don't we import more doctors to fill the family island posts like we've always done? And I suggested, with the support of the member for Bainstown, that we have the doctors here if we have the will to do what is necessary. And one of the things we have to do is to create the parity in salaries to encourage doctors to come to the public health sector, which, despite the economic circumstances, this government has done it.
More than in your head.
In addition, the incentive of scarcity allowance to physicians working in the department has been approved. This was the other part of the incentive for the doctors. The incentive is also included, Mr. Speaker, for doctors who wish to relocate to the family islands. And so, Mr. Speaker, as has been said, this budget is securing the future of all Bahamians. With the infusion of doctors, it is envisaged that the clinics will be open for longer hours in the evenings and eventually on Saturdays, and that more regular physician visits to family islands will take place. In this vein, Mr. Speaker, I thank the people of the Berry Islands for their patience as we make arrangements for the posting of a resident physician there. This coming on stream of the new clinics and the integration of family medicine in the Department of Public Health means that despite the current economic circumstances, the budgetary provisions in these areas must increase. Consequently, my ministry has had to review and reprioritize the next fiscal period in order to remain in line with the government's mandate. A priority for the new quarter is to achieve international accreditation of the HIV laboratory. This will be the first accredited medical lab in the Bahamas and the second public health lab in the Caribbean to be accredited. New molecular technology will be provided and expanded services in detecting diseases including cancer, sickle cell, and other hemoglobinopathies, in addition to new and emerging viral infections. Don't bite your tongue.
Lots of problems.
We wish to provide forensic services wherever needed. Our vision is for this lab to become a World Health Organization collaborating center. I would wish to add that this laboratory is headed by a young Bahamian female with a PhD and a basic scientist who's a close relative. Absolutely right. It's in her genes. I will not, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will not say much about the physical state of many of the facilities, except to say that the conditions have existed for years, and a number of them being in poor state prior to my taking up office, and some as a result of Hurricane Sandy in last year. There are facilities that need to be either repaired or demolished and replaced, and it is the intent of the government to bring as many as possible to good repair over the next 4 years. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to be able to speak on behalf of my government on health matters. As the saying goes, health is wealth. The state of our health dictates how we live. Good health plays an important role in our everyday lives, and without it, we are limited in what we can do, and by extension, what our nation could achieve. We have made significant strides as a nation in the health arena during our almost 40 years of independence. These strides must be sustained and improved upon through enhanced patient literacy, a strengthened workforce and health systems, and a political commitment to ensuring that all barriers to care, perceived or real, are mitigated against, and that all peoples of this great Commonwealth benefit from quality care regardless of their ability to pay. Again, this budget is securing the future of all Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, I now would like to address the wonderful constituents of North Andros and the Berry Islands.
Member for North Andros, kindly yield, if you may. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Long Island.
Thank you. The member for North Andros said I should listen, and I listened intently, and I do have to ask, I'm very grateful about the regularization of the pay for doctors, because in the Family Islands, as you know, they do work very hard. We have a foreign one and we have a Bahamian one by the name of Dr. Carter. I just wanted to know, in your presentation, sir, they didn't say anything about the upgrades of the healthcare centers in Long Island. And for example, the Deadman's Key Clinic is in very poor state. Actually, during this rainy season, they've actually had to close the clinic, where patients who needed to be seen could not be seen because of the flooding inside the clinic itself. I wanted to know what plans there are in place to address that. And of course, we have challenges in the north as well with the Sims Health Center, but not as bad as that in the south. I also needed to find out, basically, does the PHA own the residence for the doctor in the Family Island, in Long Island in particular? Because there again, the doctor has had to leave the residence, is now renting a place at $900+ per month, going on vacation for 2 months, and you guys are going to be paying that, and there's no plans that I understand that is in place to even repair the existing residence. If you can speak to that, please.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Member for North Anderson and Berries, may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The clinic approval was signed off on for the repair of the clinic in Long Island. I remember that quite, the Deadman's Key one, the one that what you described with the roof off, etc. Yes, and so I think that would be starting shortly. The clinic building, the PHA doesn't own anything in Long Island. The residences, the PHA doesn't own. The PHA only hospitals. So.
Member yields. Member for Long Island.
The residence is owned by the government, and what I'm suggesting is that the doctor there has been displaced because the house is in a very poor state, and I think that the monies that is being expended on rent is probably as much as what it takes to repair the place. That's what I'm
Thank you, Honorable Member. Member for North Anderson Berries, you may continue your presentation. We try not to go back and forth with questions at this time. Member yields. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Yeah, I only wanted clarification. You said that the family practice physicians will now be working in the clinic.
Yeah. Member for Kalani. Member for Kalani.
Yeah. I wanted to know whether those physicians, would they still be a part of PHA, but working for public health, or would they transfer over totally?
Thank you, honorable members. Just allow the member to continue his presentation to finality. And
okay, and then I'll finish.
Member for North Anderson and Berries.
Mr. Speaker, I now address the wonderful constituents of North Andros and the Berry Islands. This budget secures the future of all Bahamians, and this government has made every effort to ensure that the Family Islands are adequately provided for in its plans. A number of capital development projects have been budgeted for North Andros and the Berry Islands. These include the construction of the School of Agriculture of the College of the Bahamas, and this will be constructed at the former bar location. $4 million have been allocated for this project in the budget to date. It is anticipated that a new city will develop around this facility, bringing to the area a new population with its demands for goods and services. It is this demand that will provide the boost that the North Andros economy is waiting for. This is, Mr. Speaker, when I was drafted by the Prime Minister to run in North Andros and the first round pick, maybe probably last round pick, last round pick, yes. And I agreed to to accept the nomination. I recall sitting with him in his living room prior to going to Berry Island, to North Andros, to campaign. And he advised me on what the campaign theme would be. And he said that you should use the construction of the School of Agriculture, the College of the Bahamas, that will be built and placed in North Andros at the site in Bath. And he said, and around this, a new city will develop. I mean, this is what he said to me, advising me what to promise the people. And to see it come to fruition, as it will, in this first PLP budget, is really very gratifying when he walks in. So I am extraordinarily grateful for the opportunity I've had this past year in representing the constituency. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have had and to serve in the cabinet of the Prime Minister. But it is just amazing to me from time to time, having been so close to him over the years, to see the vision that the Prime Minister has had, not only in relation to the Andros project, but in a number of other areas of governance. And it's a real privilege to serve in his cabinet. And so I will also mention here that after the budget speech was read by the Honorable Prime Minister and the announcements made, when I returned to the ministry, my secretary told me that the telephone was blinging. It was blinging with calls from North Andros. People were so happy of what they heard. And then that was only to be eclipsed by a call I got from a gentleman in Stafford Creek who said, Dr. Gomez, he calls me frequently early in the morning. Said, Dr. Gomez, man, I don't know what's going on, but crab walking at Andros like never before. He said, I'm a man, I'm 49, and I've never seen crabs walk like this. And my mother is 78, and she says she has never seen crabs walk like this. So you can sit on the porch and get a bag of crabs, and that crabs are even going in the church and walking in the altar. That's what Mark Scott from Stafford Creek said to me on the phone. He said, man, this must be a sign. PLP government can be here forever. That's what he said. And so the time for Andros has come.
Oh, yeah.
And this is in stark contrast to what the other side did to the great country of North Andros. When Mr. Ingram always said so often, nothing for Andros, nothing for Andros. The people remember that. Major road works are planned throughout the district. Mr. Speaker, the contract for roadworks in the Berry Islands has already been awarded, and more will be forthcoming for North Andros and Berry Island communities. Many jobs will be created by these road projects. The children of Low Sound have been housed in trailers substituting for a school for more than 10 years. This year, we will construct the school, which is so badly needed. We will finally move the children of low sound out of those trailers. We will also complete. We will also complete the technical and vocational wing of the North Andros High School. This too is in the budget. Repairs to the clinic in Mastic Point, Stony Creek, and Nicholstown are also part of this fiscal period. Wow. Provisions have been made for a full-time doctor in the Berry Islands. Sixthly, the private sector has proffered a number of proposals for the development projects in our constituency, and there is every confidence that many of these will come to fruition, thus creating job opportunities for the residents. Mr. Speaker, I assure the people of North Andros and the Berry Islands that this government will continue to look for ways to enhance the living conditions and welfare of the people. This is only the first PLP government budget. We will continue to work for you. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to speak on this subject, and I pray that God will bless the members of this honorable House and bless the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I thank you. North Andros and Berry Islands supports this budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Long Island.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I reserve for tomorrow? You know. I mean, it's last night after 9 you all end, but now tonight after. Huh? No, you didn't end at 10 last night.
Members?
You know. Yeah, I go beyond. So you want me to start tonight and then finish in the morning? Well, y'all are something. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Long Island, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, the hour is late. It's 9:15. I noticed that on other nights when it was after 9 o'clock, they deferred until the next day. But in this instance, they're making me speak tonight at 9:15. It's no problem. I will accept it. I stand here, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, every time I do stand here, I have to give thanks to Almighty God, but I also give thanks to the great and wonderful people of Long Island who are truly very good to me, and I pray that they are pleased with what I do on their behalf in this place. Mr. Speaker, just before I get into the crux of my contribution, I would like to say that this past weekend, as I had announced in this honorable place, was the annual Long Island Regatta. And we welcomed hundreds of visitors to our island during this regatta. Mr. Speaker, I would be remiss if I were not to commend the organizing committee, the Long Islanders Association, the Long Island Sailing Club, and the many, many Long Islanders, both at home and away from Long Island, who contributed to making the regatta site, in the words of the Member of Parliament from Maical, the best regatta site in all of the Bahamas that he has seen. And so, Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the people of Long Island at this time for the great work they did. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, what we also did, what they did at the regatta this year, in commemoration in commemoration of the 40th anniversary of independence. There were many, many schools and youngsters involved in the cultural and musical fest that took place in Long Island, and it was a wonderful experience of Bahamian culture and Bahamian music. I want to commend the young children and the teachers that prepared them for the competitions. Mr. Speaker, it is also unfortunate that at this time, this is also the time of year when there are graduations, and we have 8 schools on Long Island, from Sims Primary in the north to Morrisville Primary in the south, and each of them are having graduation ceremonies. I'm so proud because each year, every one of these schools produce some of the highest academic achievements in the Bahamas. It is said that they're normally on par with schools such as St. Augustine's, Queens College, and St. Andrews in terms of their results. And so I would like to, first of all, give my regrets for not being able to be there this week for many of the graduating classes. But we also have retiring our district superintendent for Long Island, Mr. Basil McCarty, and he will be retiring officially this weekend from the Ministry of Education. It's people like that who come from Long Island who help to make Long Island and its education system amazing. Mr. Speaker, I promised my Long Island people, and I will speak a little bit more about it during the course of my contribution, but there are several things that they've asked me to mention as I stand. And Mr. Speaker, as I listened to various ministers and MPs give their contribution, I was particularly interested in all the work that NEMA is doing in Grand Bahama. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I had been advised by NEMA that they would be going throughout Long Island repairing roofs of elderly people. Every day I sit in this parliament, I have a gentleman who tells me about his 97-year-old mother who lives in Seymour's, Long Island, whose roof has been leaking since the last hurricane, and we have yet to get help for her. Things in Long Island are so economically depressed. Usually we are a very resilient and self-help people, and I'm sure that if this gentleman could have repaired his mother's roof, that would have been done. Unfortunately, to this day, there are so many other stories like that along Long Island, especially in the far north and the deep south, where we have individuals who do not have the economic capacity to repair their homes. So yes, I have spoken with NEMA. I wish I could get some of the funding for my people in Long Island so that they too can be considered a part of the Bahamas and get some of the relief that is needed. I also want to speak, Mr. Speaker, on the water situation in Long Island. You know, Mr. Speaker, I know that Long Island has always been represented by either a free national movement or an independent person. And it hurts my heart as a first-time MP, especially for the party that they support, to acknowledge that my people still do not have water, potable water, to the north and to the south. And I trust that somehow we will be able to rectify that. And I wanted to say also to the member for Engliston that she gave her contribution last evening.
Honorable members.
And I think she's in charge of mail boats. I want to say that North Long Island and Central Long Island gets really good mail boat service. First with the Bahamas, with the Island Link, and with Bahamas Fast Ferries, going into both Salt Pond and Sims. Mr. Speaker, I am reminded every time that I am in Long Island that there is a contracted motor vessel called the Maya Dean that is supposed to be visiting Long Island. And I am also advised that every week it is announced that the Maya Dean will be sailing for South Long Island. And I am further advised that come December of this year, it will be 3 years since the Maya Dean has in fact been to Long Island. And so I think it would be interesting to determine through the minister whether or not they are still getting their subventions for that particular route. Mr. Speaker, it was sad because we are serviced by some boat that goes to Auckland's. I can't put a name to it. It goes to Auckland's and other parts of the southern Bahamas. And just last week, the goods that the southern Long Island people had purchased were left, and all of their perishable items rotted. So there's no recourse for them. All of their meats and their vegetables and stuff were just left or brought down in a non-air-conditioned ship, and all of their stuff rotted. So not only did they lose the money that they paid for that, they also lost the freight charges that they paid. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to bring that to the attention because I think it's really important. You know, the mailboat service is not a luxury. It's an essential for an archipelagic nation like ours, and it's what, you know, keeps those little communities going. It is sad that people who work so hard really lose that amount of money just trying to get food to eat. I move now, Mr. Speaker, to my contribution for the 2013-2014 budget. Mr. Speaker, we are a nation adrift. The country is without competent and decisive leadership.
Member for Long Island. Member, you rise on a point of clarification.
Yeah, just a point of clarification.
Member for Carmichael.
And I thank Long Island for yielding, just, you know, for public consumption, as we're always trying to make sure we give the public accurate information. If my political memory serves me right, I think Long Island, when it was north and south, had Philip Smith for a time there, a PLP representative, North Long Island, and Ansan South. And we don't want the public or Long Islanders to feel that they're being disenfranchised because of their political affiliation. So I just want to add that.
I can say that.
No, I said, you know, but it was inaccurate earlier to say it's always been represented by F&Ms or independents. And I have some institutional knowledge
no problem.
in this arena.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay,
I just
fine.
want for public clarification so it doesn't look like because of this, these things are happening.
Okay, fair enough.
Very
No
well.
problem.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Member for Long Island.
Thank you for that clarification. But now that you did jog my memory, I will tell you that when it was split, everything ended at Thompson Bay in terms of what was being done. And you know, one of the things I've got to tell you is that, you know, having a Long Island, having a constituency such as Long Island, and I had a really good conversation with the member from ICAL and the Deputy Prime Minister, the member for Rumkey, Fred Island, and San Salvador while they were in Long Island for the regatta. It is a very long island. It is 80 miles in length, and the roads are curving, so, you know, to get from one end to the other is a lot more than 80 miles. And, you know, what we have done is truly, we're trying so hard to move away from the politics and to bring them together as one. Because truly, you know, the economics of the island requires that. And that is so important. And so I trust that, you know, we won't have that. And that isn't what I was trying to portray. I was just saying essentially that, you know, we need to do more for Long Island. And so, Mr. Speaker, I begin again. We are a nation adrift. The country is without competent, decisive leadership. This budget represents a stunning lack of vision, planning, competence, and decisiveness. What we needed was a forward-looking budget. Instead, we have a budget full of gimmicks, with few meaningful ideas to spur jobs, growth, just rhetoric and platitudes. One can quickly realize that the game that is being played, the Bahamian people have very little confidence in this budget. Little is being done, Mr. Speaker, to promote growth. The governing party met an economy on its way to growth after the most difficult economic times the world saw since the Great Depression. We appreciate that the governing party has determined to continue the F&M decision to exempt first-time homeowners from stamp tax for 5 years and extend it for 1 year each, both the City of Nassau Revitalization Act and the Family Island Development Act. I note, however, that the governing party, which claims to be the friend of the small business, did not see themselves clear to continue the F&M policy of exempting small and medium-sized businesses from business license fees for any period whatsoever. The reform measures announced by the Minister of Finance were already announced and set in motion by the F&M, and I would like to articulate what they are. The VAT, the Real Property Tax Reform, a Tax Administration Department, the Financial Audit and Administration Act, e-government, and the Small, Medium, and Medium-Sized Business Act. Mr. Speaker, instead of steadiness and stability, this government is the very face of chaos, drifting from one crisis to the next. We now learn that it cannot even get right in a timely manner routine matters such as the appointment of diplomats overseas. I saw in this morning's papers that the Minister of Foreign Affairs claims that the closing of the U.S. visa section to the Bahamian public was not an unprecedented event. Instead, he recalled the murder of an F&M cabinet minister. If the Minister of Foreign Affairs believes that there is only one person capable of fulfilling the vice consul job at the U.S. Embassy, may God help the Bahamas. What is indeed unprecedented.
Member for Long Island, the member stands on the point.
Yeah.
Member for Foxton.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I simply said this, that we have to be reasonable and rational. The United States, as far as I'm aware, is a reasonable country. They are our friends. All I said was, these are the facts which they gave to us. They said there was a vice consul who was injured. That person has a particular expertise to do with interviewing people for visas. That they had sought her assistance. She's a retiree. She's amongst a group of people who are retirees who do just that. They are challenged with finding people with that expertise. She was here on a limited contract. The contract is up within a month, and they're scrambling around to find someone to replace her. So an unusual confluence of events took place where she was injured and out ill for the day, and they were unable in the circumstances to fulfill the obligation. They scrambled around, and the next day they were able to resolve the problem. Those are the facts which they presented to us. Whether I believe or don't believe is irrelevant at this stage. It is what the facts are as they presented them to us, and that's all I said.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Member for Long Island.
What is unprecedented, though, Mr. Speaker, is that the Bahamas has a Minister of Foreign Affairs who, in my opinion, is incapable of having a Bahamian ambassador to the United States of America appointed in a timely fashion. What is unprecedented is that the Bahamas is the only country in the English-speaking Caribbean without a resident American ambassador in post today. Jamaica, Barbados, and the Eastern Caribbean, Trinidad, Tobago, Belize, Guyana, all have resident U.S. ambassadors in post. And finally, Mr. Speaker, what is unprecedented is that the Bahamas Consul General in Miami, where my uncle, a former Speaker of the House, served as the country's first Consul General, is today, as we speak, I am advised, without a Consul General. Miami, sir, is the Bahamas' busiest consular jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker, this government has broken promises faster than the speed of sound, i.e., the sound of their voices making promises which they could never fulfill.
The member yields. The chair recognizes the member for Foxton.
Functions of the embassies of the Bahamas overseas are being carried out fully and entirely. There is no function which is not being carried out. And that is all that is important at this stage. They're being carried out. They're being carried out properly. They're being carried out fully, and nobody is being disadvantaged.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Member for Long Island.
The fact of the matter still stands, Mr. Speaker, as I stated it. Now, I'm not talking about the functions. We're responsible for the Bahamas, and there is none in place. This Speaker, this government has broken promises faster than the speed of sound. That is the sound of their own voices making promises which they could never fulfill. Even as this government is cutting funding to programs for ordinary Bahamians, it seems to me that they're finding money to take care of friends and families with all kinds of government jobs, cars, and perks. It is clear which Bahamians are being put first. PLP parliamentarians, their supporters, their families, and their friends. Mr. Speaker, when one considers what the side opposite has said in the past, this budget is the very picture of hypocrisy and doublespeak. The governing party has now run the largest deficit in the history of our nation after attacking the F&M for running high deficits during the Great Recession. I repeat that again, Mr. Speaker. This governing party has now run the largest deficit in the history of our nation after attacking the F&M for running high deficits during the Great Recession. And they are undertaking the largest borrowing in a 2-year period than any other time in the history of our country. What about the contingency warrants issued by the Minister of Finance for unbudgeted expenditure? What about the contingency warrants issued by the Minister of Finance for unbudgeted expenditure? The member for St. Anne's, who's also the chairman of the PAC, has written to the Minister of State, the member for Golden Isles, seeking a list of contingency warrants issued since May 2012 for unbudgeted expenditure. These matters cannot be held secret from Parliament, Mr. Speaker. They require the approval of this House. We demand that a response be provided by the government. After all, there cannot be that many.
I could request that. Yes.
Members.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to repeat that for the benefit of those who can't hear over the talk. Mr. Speaker, the member to my left for St. Anne's, who is the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, has written to the Minister of State, the member for Golden Isles, seeking a list of contingency warrants that have been issued since May 2012 for unbudgeted expenditure. These matters, I repeat, cannot be held secret from Parliament. They require the approval of this House, and we demand that a response be provided by the government. After all, there cannot be that many, or are there? Does this require research, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the government is keeping the taxes they condemned us for increasing. They haven't changed them. They haven't reduced them. Those tax increases, by their logic, were only bad because the F&M put them in place. Now that they are in, as they say, they over there and we over here, they ain't changed nothing over there. It's still in place. So now that they are in place, they are keeping increases put in place by the F&M on hotel room occupancy, on vehicle licensing, and departure tax. In the case of departure tax, Mr. Speaker, they will now impose departure tax on toddlers and infants under the age of 6 years. You know?
The member rises on a point of order. Members, the chair recognizes the honorable member for members. The chair wants to be the member for Golden Isles.
Now, Mr. Speaker, earlier in her contribution, the honorable member for Long Island said that the Progressive Liberal Party is continuing the F&M policy of first-time exemption of stamp tax for first-time homeowners. Mr. Speaker, the Progressive Liberal Party introduced that program in 2002. Mr. Speaker, we introduced it in 2002 for 5 years. It expired.
Members.
It expired December 31st, 2007. At that time, Mr. Speaker, the F&M administration refused to extend the exemption. To the point, Mr. Speaker, that there was commentary from the Contractors Association, Mr. Wrinkle, the president at the time, the Real Estate Association, Mr. Wong, who both said that the refusal of the F&M government at that time to extend that exemption wreaked havoc on the real estate and construction industry in this country. So it was not an F&M program. Following the tremendous outcry, they decided in July of 2008 that they will re-implement the program. The damage had been done. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, so it was not an F&M program. It was a program conceived.
The chair wants to hear Golden Hours.
It was a program conceived in the initial months of this Progressive Liberal Party administration, 2002-2007. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, to the point about imposing departure taxes on infants and toddlers. The practice is now, Mr. Speaker, that when every single ticket is sold, departure tax is collected. Departure tax is collected, but for those under 6, that departure tax is not remitted to the government. All we are saying is, since the departure tax is collected already, the money will be remitted to the government, Mr. Speaker. It's charged already. And so I thought I should correct that, Mr. Speaker. It is not true to say that we are now imposing taxes on toddlers and infants. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, it is incorrect to say that the Progressive Liberal Party has not rolled back any of those egregious and onerous taxes that the Free National Movement put on the Bahamian people back in 2010. During the midterm budget, we rolled back the tax. We rolled back the tax on trucks from 85% back to 65%. And in this budget, Mr. Speaker, we are reverting to the pre-2010 system where taxes are payable, customs duty, excise taxes are payable on value. The advice we got from the experts in the Customs Department that it's easier to administer and it brings relief to poor people, Mr. Speaker. Yes. So erroneous to say that we have left all of the taxes in place, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
The point is, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Long Island, you may continue. Members, the chair wants to hear Long Island.
Mr. Speaker, the vehicular tariffs that they are now charging, Mr. Speaker, does not redeem anything for the Bahamian people, because it now encourages those very same people to start bringing in clunkers into this country. That's right, and gas guzzlers. And so there's really no change there, you know. They should be moving towards clean cars and hybrid cars.
Members?
The governing party, Mr. Speaker, is projecting that they will collect over $70 million from new and increased taxes. Increased taxes on banks are projected to yield $17 million. Increased business license will produce some $28 million additional revenue. And the introduction of the customs processing fee, which my colleague also spoke to, is projected to result an additional $20 million in revenue. And the imposition of the environmental levy, another $11 million. But I note, they are continuing the cap on real property tax for wealthy homeowners. The governing party is seeking to bamboozle the public by disguising some of these taxes as simply new methodologies of implementing tax reform. Indeed, having announced their plan to extend for 5 years their exemption taxes, as the member has said, to first-time homeowners, this budget projects that the government will collect some $11.5 million in stamp taxes from persons buying homes valued between $100,000 and $250,000. That is $11.1 million more than was projected last year. I'd like to have some water, please. In fact, the governing party is imposing the largest tax increase ever imposed on the Bahamian public. Business license, customs processing fees, building permit fees, and they tell us they're coming back to look for an additional $70 million in taxes this year. In all, they intend to increase taxes and fees by more than $140 million in this budget year, this fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, looking at the numbers in this budget, one cannot be faulted for thinking, and I've heard the explanations, but one cannot be faulted for thinking that a number of permanent and pensionable civil servants are scheduled to be replaced by contract workers. They can clarify it, but it appears from what we are seeing that that may be the case. Further, one may guess that the government intends to create many minimum wage jobs as possible within government ministries. $4 million allocated to contract workers at education, which the minister was speaking to, and we still do not know what the difference is between that $4 million that is at the head there as opposed to what exists today. So maybe, you know, we were not sure, and we have to make our own determinations. But ditto for social services and ditto for public works. That's a total of $12 million in just 3 ministries for contract workers. And millions more has been provided in other ministries and departments. Perhaps all the new engagements on contracts being whispered about are true. Perhaps.
Member rises on a point of order. The member yields. The chair recognizes the member for Golden Isles.
Speaker, part of the exercise of this budget was to bring more clarity and transparency to the budget process. In certain ministries, Mr. Speaker, you had workers on contract, people who were contracted workers, but they were under headings such as social assistance, development contracts, unemployment assistance program, other headings. What we sought to do in this budget, Mr. Speaker, is make it quite clear that contract workers would be put in a category which they are, contract workers. So instead of being disguised as development contract or social assistance, etc., other headings in the budget, every single person who is on contract in any ministry is put on the line so that the public might see
Clean accounting.
those are contract workers, not contract workers under the name development contracts or contract workers under the name social assistance. Contract workers where it should be contract. And we went through that exercise in this budget to clear it up. And when we go head by head, Mr. Speaker, it will be made clear. There's no desire to bamboozle. It's to bring clarity so people who are looking at the budget can see it for what it is and where the money is being spent.
Thank you. Thank you, honourable member. Member for Long Island.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is this, and I think that the member for East Grand Bahamas spoke to it quite eloquently. The fact of the matter is this, Mr. Speaker. When this document of estimates is presented, and this is not just for them, because it's been subsequent governments, if there's going to be a change in the way that the government is going to present the budget, it would be a wonderful exercise for those of us that do not sit in governments to at least have footnotes stating what those changes are. Because Mr. Speaker, before we go head to head, we actually do the debate, Mr. Speaker. So it doesn't make sense, because we are asked to get up from day one to speak to something. And like I said, I'm not just ridiculing them. It would be useful to the persons who are in the Ministry of Finance to give clarity.
Members.
You know, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am being very clear, because if all of them were to present before we speak, then we could, when we prepare our speeches, then we wouldn't go through this entire exercise over and over and over again. And that is the bottom line that I'm getting to. The only thing we get when we get this bundle, Mr. Speaker, is a written correspondence of generalities. Okay? And what I'm saying, and what, Mr. Speaker, you know, you talk about listening. I said at the very start, all administrations are guilty of it. And it could have been clearer. And so that is the bottom line, you know? And so, Mr. Speaker.
Members.
And to talk about contract workers, Mr. Speaker, there is a special category within the Ministry of Social Services that is really a stopgap measure for individuals who would have fallen on their luck, would have been out of a temporary job, that you put into something called a work relief program. We tried very hard, Mr. Speaker, to downsize that program. They are not contract workers, Mr. Speaker. They are a part of a very informal workforce. So unless the government is now giving them contracts, then that is something new. I am not familiar with that because none of those persons in that particular program were permanent workers. What they were people who were basically should be given jobs just so that they can make ends meet until in transition, generally. That's essentially what it was. And we were basically trying to cut down on those numbers by assimilating those persons into the regular P&P. And so now you see this expansion again of these informal workers, which I imagine at some point in the future is going to once again become a burden for wanting to transfer into P&P. Mr. Speaker, that's my point. So maybe all these new engagements on contract being whispered about are true.
Member for Long Island. The member for Yamakwa rises on a point of order.
A point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Yamakwa.
Mr. Speaker, the member is well aware that what is supposed to be a stopgap measure has turned into persons being on that program, some of them for now 18 years or more. In addition to which, every 3 months, those persons, the contract for those persons are renewed, so those persons are considered to be contract workers. And in the truest sense of the word, every 3 months, they have to get a letter indicating the conditions of their employment, and in fact asking them and reminding them to seek other employment. But it is indeed a contract.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Member for Long Island, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, when I thank the member. When I went to that ministry, those people were just being hung on week to week, year after year. And one of the things we attempted to do was to downsize that number. I reintroduced exactly what she just described. Every 3 months that they come in, they know that this is not a permanent job. This is just a stopgap, because we had too many people with expectations of transferring into the PNP. And what I am saying, Mr. Speaker, is that it is setting another precedent of taking another, for want of a better word, generation of these casual workers who will want to, at some point, be transitioned into the PNP, which I'm not sure is the way that we need to do it if we're talking about cutting down on government recurrent expenditure. And so...
The member yields. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakwa.
Mr. Speaker, if the point of order is, if the member and her government was trying to reduce that figure, they were not very successful, because there were many new persons brought onto that program during their last tenure, and particularly in the last few months, before the elections. And so, Mr. Speaker, they were not very successful on that. And from when I was there as the Minister for Social Services, the very first time, Mr. Speaker, those letters were in place from then. And so those letters have always been in place, Mr. Speaker, for that program.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Anyway, you know...
Member for Long Island.
I understand that there is a difficulty with hearing truth, and so I'm not going to prolong this. I take the opportunity as well to call on F&Ms in need of employment to seek employment in these ministries, Mr. Speaker, because there's lots and lots of allocations there for contract workers. 10,000 jobs, jobs, jobs. I'm telling them, go out and try and become a part of these contract workers. Do not be dissuaded, F&Ms. There's lots of money there for contract workers. The money is here in this budget. The bulk of it is at the Ministry of Public Works, Social Services, and the Department of Education. But the provision is made in virtually every budget head.
Member for Long Island. Member for Yamakwa. You have the floor.
Again, the member is misleading the public, Mr. Speaker. These are not vacant positions. There are people in these positions. And so to say that there are jobs available for contract workers in the government is erroneous. The member again seeks to mislead the country with untruths. She knows that on that program there are persons that there are up to 250, I think, persons right now in, and in fact, we right now we are have prepared a cabinet paper which has gone to cabinet to bring on some of those persons firmly because they've been, and in point, all of those persons who have been there up to the year 2000. That's how far back there are persons on that program, Mr. Speaker.
Understood. Very well. Thank you, Honourable Member. Member for Long Island.
Mr. Speaker, 6 to 96 general workers. There are 6 well, there are 6 now, and they have in this budget for 96 budgeted. There are jobs there. There are jobs for general service workers, Mr. Speaker. I tell Bahamians, go and get those jobs, because that's what that is for. 6 to 96, that's a lot. That's 90 new jobs right there. Do what is required to get the jobs that are coming on stream. You are Bahamian citizens, F&Ms. Do not let them turn you away. You pay taxes. You're entitled to the benefit of any employment opportunity available in the Bahamas government. And if you have to pretend to support the governing party to gain employment, you have to do that. Just remember who you really are. F&Ms, I'm telling you, there are jobs. I don't care what they say. It's right here, from 6 to 96 general workers. General workers. You don't need much to become a general worker in government. Mr. Speaker, I move a little bit to crime now. Crime and the fear of crime continue to haunt our Bahamian citizens and residents. We are confronted also by worrisome attacks now on foreign guests in our country. Our peace of mind, our way of life, our economic and our social well-being are all at risk. I remind this government, and there are people on their side as well, Mr. Speaker, who have talked about the crime. They stood up in here no longer than this morning and talked about crime. I remind this government of its easy boast at the last general election about addressing crime. I remind them about the reckless and irresponsible conduct by some on their side who sought to showcase crime statistics in a manner that was not only harmful to us as a people, but to our very livelihood, the tourism industry. Whether in opposition or in government, we must show restraint in the broader interests of our country. In this vein, I thank the fine men and the women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force for their dedicated efforts in the fight against crime. News reports suggest...
Members. Take a seat. Members, we're not going any further with that. We're not going any further with that. So members, just cease and desist from extraneous statements of disorder and disdain. Member for Long Island.
Mr. Speaker.
Member for Long Island, you have the floor.
You know, Mr. Speaker, behind me, I have the member for South Beach saying that I am a criminal, and I have the member on the other side from Golden Isle saying that F&M's are criminals.
Member for Long Island. Members for Long Island, refrain from singling out members and just direct your attention to the chair and continue your presentation.
You asked me to commit to something today, and if this continues, I will have to discuss this because, you know, this is totally unfair.
Member, continue your presentation.
News reports suggest... News reports suggest that the government is now giving consideration to the marital rape legislation. How pleasing to learn that the governing party has decided to join us and the rest of the civilized world in the 21st century. The safety and well-being of Bahamian women are paramount and should not be sacrificed out of political expediency, as was done by the side opposite when they were last in office, and as is demonstrated many times in this place, Mr. Speaker, their lack of respect for women. If we fail to address crime together, regardless of party affiliation, then we shall surely perish together.
The member rises on a point of order. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamacraw.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, once again, it seems that the member is unable to present make an honest presentation. Mr. Speaker, in the former administration brought the marital rape bill to the House, and they did nothing with it. They allowed it to die in the session. And so they had the authority, they had the power to bring it, and we would have had open discussion in this House about it. And at that time, we would have been able to put our position. We were never given a chance or an opportunity to put our position because they lacked the will to follow through with the bill they laid on the table of this House, Mr. Speaker.
Now we gotta.
Thank you, honorable member. Member for Long Island.
I'd just like to make a point of clarity before we end, please. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that bill of which the member for Yamacraw spoke was presented at the beginning of the summer recess, and it was very clearly articulated that there will be meetings and town meetings from place to place to discuss it. It was discussed in public forum, it was discussed in church and civic organizations, and Mr. Speaker, not one of them ever supported it. That is the reality. Just as they boycotted the rights for married Bahamian women. Thank you, sir.
Member yields. The chair recognizes honorable member for Fox Hill.
Please, you can make all these blanket generalizations. Two members of the government spoke specifically to this point. One was what was Alfred's position then? He's the minister. He was the Attorney General. No, he was the Minister of Education at the time, Minister of Education. And he spoke in favor of the bill. He said he supported it unequivocally. Sandra Dean Patterson invited me to a function. I also said supported it unequivocally. So you can't say who didn't, the government or no member of the government supported it. The other members were never asked their views, as the minister said. You let the bill die in committee. Now crying crocodile tears here tonight about this.
Very well, thank you, honorable member. Members, member for Long Island.
I will bring the supporting document to show where the then member for Yamacraw, when interviewed by the newspapers, did not support it. And Mr. Speaker, that was for the public discourse to take place during the summer months. I will yield to the member for Bain and Grantstown, sir.
The member for Yamacraw rises on a point of order. The chair recognizes honorable member for Yamacraw.
There is nowhere in any newspaper or any interview in this country that anyone could say that I did not support the bill. I was asked a question. I spoke to the process, which I said was, I thought, flawed, but I never spoke to whether or not I supported the bill. So the process, Mr. Speaker, that is the position. So if the member has enough, and in fact, Mr. Speaker, I would ask you to have the member withdraw it until she is able to produce the document, because there will be no document in this country that will show that Melanie Griffin did not support the marital bill.
Thank you.
I had no position on it. I stated no position on it.
Thank you, honorable member. Member for Long Island, the member for Yamacraw states that yes, the member for Yamacraw indicated that
Mr. Speaker,
there's no evidence of her not supporting the bill.
Mr. Speaker, on the earlier breath, she said we did nothing with it, but yet she said the process was flawed. And so, Mr. Speaker, how could you speak to a process where nothing had happened? It seems to me that she is totally confused. And so, Mr. Speaker, I don't think that I have anything to clarify. She said that we did nothing with it, but yet she said the process was flawed. Which process was flawed, Mr. Speaker? I need clarity on that. Tell me which process was flawed.
Member for Long Island, take your seat, member for Long Island. You made an allegation that the member indicates that that she did not say it. It's just as simple as that. She just said she did not say it. And until you could prove that she did, you must withdraw.
It's no problem. When you're confused, you're confused. It's not a problem. We understand the confusion that she has because she went to the Human Rights Commission and could not substantiate why we were not in a position to have those amendments made to our laws. And now her AG is in Geneva trying to do the very same thing. And they realize that we are so behind the 8 ball and so behind the 21st century. So it's no problem, Mr. Speaker. I will withdraw whatever we say. The proof is in the pudding.
Thank you, honourable member. Member for Bain and Grant, member for Long Island. The member yields. The chair recognizes honourable member for Bain and Grandstand.
How many of y'all can give me instructions in here? Mr. Speaker, I move the House suspends until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday, 13th of June.
Second.
Thank you, honourable members. It is moved and seconded that the business of this House suspends until tomorrow morning, the 13th of June, at 10 a.m. As many in favor will remain seated, and those opposed will stand. The business of this House will suspend until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
All rise.
Yeah, 31.
That ends this evening's session. One more day this week anyway, and we'll see whether members need to return on Monday next week, which at the moment looks quite likely. Some notes coming from this evening's session, beginning with the member for MyCal, the Minister of Agriculture and Marine Resources. He says that the government intends to repair the packing houses that are there, and they're going to build some new ones as well. Also, there will be 2 satellite abattoirs in the islands of Eleuthera and Long Island, as those are the 2 islands that produce a lot of the meats that we consume here in the Bahamas, the local meats anyway. There is, of course, the abattoir, which is here in New Providence, but he says there will be 2 satellite ones constructed on Eleuthera and Long Island. He also talked about the protection of local products, and once the products can be produced, whatever the items are, consistently and of good quality, there's no reason why the government shouldn't do whatever it can to protect local farmers and producers. The Plant Protection Agency, also a part of the ministry, and that agency is going to help to prepare the country for entry into the WTO, which we expect will happen within a year. Also, new laws, the minister said, to regulate agriculture, because there really haven't been any new agricultural laws in a very long time. Talking about agriculture, of course, he's got to talk about the BAIC, the Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation, which, as Minister Gray pointed out, was created to help to put people in business. And again, he can't talk about BAIC unless he talks about the member for South Abaco, Edison Key, who he says he intends to engage as a consultant as soon as it is possible. We also heard about Conk again tonight, which was in the middle of some heated discussion last night. The member for Montague, Richard Lightburn, offered that information that he talked about last night that has come from the National Trust. Of course, Minister Gray, he will look at that information. He's not promising that he is going to be ruled by it. He said he would be guided by it. Also, there will be some satellite farms on 7 of the family islands, according to Minister Gray, and the intention is, it's not been approved, intention is to actually pay persons to farm these satellite experimental farms, and we will see how far that goes. And talking about his ministry, Minister Gray talking about the fact that he and McPhee were appointed to the Local Government Commonwealth Council. Only 11 spots available on that executive board, 126 or so countries represented. The Bahamas was able to get 2 of those positions. He said that's their theme in which the local practitioners are held. Also, Meguana, he's shooting to get them a new administrative complex. As he said, he doesn't think they've had one in 30 years since he was a Family Island commissioner over there. Persons employed by the central government, paid by local government, they're now being transferred to the payroll of the central government. Good news for local government, they're going to be able to keep that money to do some things that they ordinarily would not have been able to do. Heard from Nico Grant, the member for Central Grand Bahama, and he's talking about the elbows and the repairs that must happen, and the fact that Mark McDonald, who were, as he described it, the heirs of the government, and the hands and the heart of the government in this project, and he says to the governing side, specifically the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works, not to let them play a pilot on this issue and wash their hands of what is going on. Also, he talked about work, some $20-odd million worth of work done in Eleuthera. He was refuting claims that there was a deliberate attempt not to do any work in Eleuthera. Again, we heard something that came up from last night as well. Back to that Nolly prosecute, because the Minister of Education, Marathon MP Jerome Fitzgerald, decided he was going to address it head on, and his point was really simple. No one has the right to question the Attorney General in any such decision it might make, and so he invited the opposition to continue their cause. In fact, he went all the way back, talking about the Moscow situation, and called some names about those involved, and said, if you really want to talk about something that is not above board, you need to check this out. And talking about borrowing, because that's been a big issue for everyone, given the huge deficit that we have to deal with. He says about $600 million of that $1 billion that they're accusing the government of borrowing is to cover debts left by the Free National Movement, and so they need to explain that to the Bahamian people. Talked about the work done with preschools and the new BGCSE awards named for Marjorie Davis and Carol Hanna. Also, we heard about doctors for being transferred to the Berry Islands and incentives to get them there instead of importing new doctors. A new doctor for the Berry Islands. This is from Dr. Perry Gomez, the Minister of Health. And, of course, they're looking at a new hospital for Grand Bahama in addition to the new facilities that they are going to build in Eleuthera and Cat Island. And he talked about the accreditation that they are trying to get for a new HIV lab. I think it's going to be headed by the daughter of the Minister of Transport, Dr. Indira Martin. Those are some of the highlights, of course. The member for Long Island on the floor, and she will continue and complete her presentation as the session begins tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock right here. So, on behalf of the team here at the Parliamentary Channel. I'm Anthony Newbold. We'll see you right back here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.